So guys, what if Naruto was God of Slave in High School DxD Naruto X Harem movie? Many years ago, if you had ever told Naruto that he would be the human friend of a group of devils, he would have called you crazy, but it's amazing how your life turns out different than expected. Uzumaki Naruto was in every sense of the word a very normal human being. In fact, the only thing he was known for in Kuo Academy was being the best friend of the resident Prince Charming. It was through kinda that Naruto came to know Rias Gremory and her group of friends. Naruto was a second-year student when he was finally inducted into the Occult Research Club. For someone whose life had been monotonous, the excitements he got from being a part of their group really made him happy. They accepted him somewhat. He was not really useful to them considering he was just an ordinary human. But everything was okay, at least until Issei showed up. In Naruto's opinion, he had never seen a more disgusting human being in his life. The boy was so perverted he threw everything about self-respect and how to treat women properly. What made it was how Rias took it in stride. She even indulged him as she flirted with him and showed more skin than was necessary every time Issei was around. Naruto more than anyone knew how much that hurt. He loved her. Of course, he had never had the courage to tell her even in the midst of Kiba always pushing him to do so. Naruto loved the current status quo. He loved the way Rias looked at him every morning when school started and every evening when he says goodbye. High school love has always been the stuff of stories and dramas, but to Naruto nothing had ever felt more real. Then he found out she was engaged, and she had to fight for her freedom, but he was powerless to help her. He had to die many times inside when he found out she lost. She was going to be the wife of some self-entitled prick. He couldn't do anything. In this world of devils, he was just a human. Rias did not even deem him important enough to change into a devil. He was powerless, useless. He could do nothing to save the woman he loved from becoming the trophy wife, sexual slave of a complete brigand. And lo and behold, Issei comes to the rescue again. Naruto could not have been more ecstatic at that moment. As much as he hated the bastard, Naruto knew he was the only chance they have got. Issei had strength, a secret power nestled deep within him. The only notable problem was that Issei could hardly recognize his own potential and use it to his advantage. The battle between Issei and Riser was the stuff of legend. Naruto had to appreciate his strength and will, if not for nothing else but the fact that he was here to help Rias. He won, yes, but the kiss Issei and Rias shared after devastated him. Naruto had known her long to read her emotions. She liked the pervert, very much so in fact, but all it did was tear his fragile heart to pieces. On their way back to the human world, every member of their little group was so psyched and happy by Issei's victory, even Kaneko, who was always quiet, joined in on the fun. He was silent throughout and only Kiba could notice the dark atmosphere hovering over him. Naruto could see the worried look on his friend's face. The pity. Naruto hated that look with all of his being. He did not want it, and most especially from his friend. So he smiled, he joked, and laughed with them. He showed a scene of happiness when all he wanted to do at that moment was gut Issei like the pig he was. Naruto blamed himself. Maybe if he had told Rias how he felt earlier, things might have been different, but Naruto knew life was not as easy it seems. His inactions cost him a chance at love. Even if she had rejected him, he would have known where he stood, but now he was left miserable. Naruto went home crying to his mother. While that was not something a 16-year-old should ever do, she listened to him. Even when Naruto was throwing words like devils, sacred gear and holy energy, she never once gave an inclination that she did not believe him. He lamented to his mother about his lack of power. He told her how badly he wanted to be strong, because he realized that no matter how down to earth Rias seemed, she was manipulative and the only stimulus she responded to was power. Naruto held his mother Kushina as she rocked him from side to side. Then she asked a question that was incredibly eerie. Naruto could not help but shudder. Do you want power, Naruto? Do you want to make that girl love you? Do you want to make your enemies submit and worship as you tear down anything they ever believed in? Do you want to be a god on earth? Looking at Naruto, he looked quite comical, with the tears and snot all over his face. He nodded to his mother. She pulled his head to her chest as she began to sing to him. Naruto never saw the knife, but he felt its entry. The cold bite of the steel sent a wave of cold shock through his body. He could hardly comprehend the fact that his own mother just killed him, but why? As his eyes closed, he was cornered by images he could hardly make sense of. A giant nine-tailed fox, a ball of rapidly spinning wind shaped like a shuriken, a white-haired old man on a toad, a beauty woman with dark blue hair and transparent eyes, two little children, a blonde boy that looked so much like Naruto and a girl that was a little copy of the woman with dark blue hair, and then a man with a hair so blonde Naruto thought he was looking at himself. And just before everything went blank, he heard his mother say, "My little boy, you are more than what you know, and more than what the world perceives you as. I have a second chance to be your mother, but I may have made a mistake. You are Naruto Uzumaki regardless of which world you are in. Your life and your heart have always been governed by thirst for power. And you have always used your power to protect. In this world I thought I was enough to protect you, that you never needed to fight anymore because your mama is right here, but I was wrong. You may not need your power to protect anymore, but you need it to live, you need it to grow and be better than before, you need it to be happy, and I'm sorry for taking that away from you, but now I gift it to you back. Claim your legacy, son, and forgive your mother. The Occult Research Club had a very tense atmosphere. Kiba was glaring at Rias and Issei's with every fiber of his being. In his futile attempt to bore a hole through their skull, he had missed the question Akeno asked him, so she repeated it. Kiba, are you sure? None of us noticed it. You are wrong, Akeno. The president knew Naruto had feelings for her, yet she went all out to flaunt her closeness with the disgusting waste of space pervert Issei. Apparently Issei had a problem with Kiba's explanation of him, but a glare from Kaneko silenced him. Kiba, you are right that I was aware, I just did not feel the same. Forcing myself to feel something for him would not have been any different than being forced to marry Riser. I should have made everything clear to him at first, that way he would not have been hurt as much by my relationship with Issei. So let's go see him so that I can apologize for hurting him. Naruto is a member of the Occult Research Club. He may not be a member of our family, but he is a friend, so we have to take care of each other. Kiba already had tears running down his eyes at Rias' comments. He looked back up at her with a fierce look in his eyes that was borderline hatred as he said. Don't bother. Naruto is already dead. He took his own life. You and your pervert drove my best friend to his death. Don't ever say his name in my presence again. And then Kiba left the building with little to no regard of the bombshell he just dropped. And as for the others, they could hardly say anything, and most devastated of them all was Akeno, because for the second time, she had just lost her husband, and this time it was even more worse than their past life, because he had no idea who she was, and just like her previous mistakes as Hinata, she has committed another blunder by not being confident enough to tell her husband who she really was, even if he did not believe her, but now it was too late. The images swimming in his sight were not coherent to him at all. He could read meanings or scenes from a few of them, but in the end they were too disjointed and unconnected. He understood some things though, but the barrage of foreign emotions were so clogging he felt like a defective drainpipe. He was not sure of many things that he had seen, but at least he understood a few of them. He felt the need to categorize everything he had just seen. He needed to make sense of it. He was Uzumaki Naruto, Hokage. No, he was Uzumaki Naruto, student. He could not seem to reconcile who he is now or who he was then, or even worse what he was now. He remembered red, lots of it, the blood, the fox and his mother, though she seemed a lot thinner in his memories and a lot more stubborn. And then there was a woman, Hinata. He did not know why, but at the very sound of her name he felt an indescribable longing, the need to hold her and love her, an emotion so infinitely powerful that what he felt for Rias felt like child's play. He discovered a need to know her, and with it came the knowledge of a great ball of fire in his stomach. Naruto opened his eyes to an unfamiliar roof. This was not the home he had grown up in. It smelled moldy, like a combination of musty old socks and bleached clothes. The faint scent of a sakura tree in full bloom wafted into the room. But even then it did nothing to block the almost imperceptible smell of blood. His gaze wandered the room as he took in the unfamiliar sights, instincts that he did not remember having prompted him to analyze any mode of escape or weapon to defend himself with, in case things went wrong. He had no idea why, but this new urge made him feel strange, like he was disconnected from reality. An obvious cough brought his attention to his mother, who was sitting on a rocking chair just 3 meters away from the bed, cloaked in the shadows of the early morning. I know what you are thinking, Naruto, but you are quite safe here. Safe? Naruto might have his head in a jumbled mess, but he quite remembered the feeling of a knife being shoved into his heart, and by his own mother no less. It was hard to look at her as nothing more than an enemy right now. I know what you are thinking, son, but it was necessary. I would never put your life in jeopardy. Really? Because it seems to me like that's what you did. I felt myself die. But somehow I am here and I have this memories in my head of a life I never lived. What's worse is that I can't even make sense of it. Mother, what did you do to me? Naruto could not read the expression on his mother's face. Of all the years he had known her, he had never known her to be this mysterious. On occasion she was a firecracker of untamed rage, but more often than not she was just a simple single mother. Loath as he was to admit it, this version of his mother scared him a lot. I freed you, Naruto. I gave you back your memories of your old life. Gave back? Which means I had them before. Why would you take them away in the first place? I can't seem to wrap my head around it. If you took it away, why give it back, and why now? I know you require an explanation, Naruto, but I can't tell you everything. In time you can get to know your true origins. In fact, you would not need me to tell you anything. The answers you seek are all hidden in your head, but what I can tell is what you are and why I decided to unlock your memories." She paused her impromptu speech, or at least he thought she was giving a speech. Everything sounded strange to him now. The world was slower, it was faster, brighter yet grayed. "There's something wrong with me, I feel strange, there's a fire in you." Stomach her interruption, and knowledge of what was wrong with him made his heart skip an involuntary beat. It was weird how she knew what he wanted to say before he said it. In the end he was left with more questions than answers. "What you feel now is nothing more than energy, a power which has been locked in you from the moment you were born, a combination of holy energy, used to make miracles, demonic mana used for casting of dark spells or any weapon of demonic nature, and finally human life force, the only thing in all the universe with the power of creation. You, my son, are a discrucis, the balanced existence of a creature of darkness, a scion of light and a being of mortality." Naruto started laughing. Honestly, who would believe all that? He hoped his mother was not drinking again, because it would seem she was hallucinating or something. He knew angels and devils existed, but a discrucis, what the hell was that? It was hard for Naruto to not see it as it was, total bullshit. "There's nothing funny about this, Naruto. Your father. At least your father in this world is the Archangel Michael. My father was the former heir in line for the position of Lucifer, Rizivum Lucifer, and my mother, she was a human entrepreneur, a famous businesswoman who had no business summoning devils in a bid to be more successful. For a while that worked in her favor, until she was raped by what one would consider an ultimate evil. I was born from that sin, or you might say reborn. I can't tell you any more than this because you are not strong enough yet. But know this: I chose to lock your memories away because I wanted you to have a normal life, but I never expected you would fall in with devils. Your connection with them has put you in danger, so I had no choice but to drag you back into this life. I hope you will forgive me, Naruto, but I have to prepare you. In time you will know everything. But for now, go back to sleep. Your training begins in earnest." Naruto watched as she left the room. Her answers only gave birth to more questions. What was a discrucis? And his father was an angel. Kiba would hardly believe it. As the name Kiba went through his head, he was bombarded by another slew of images. A brown-haired boy with red tribal marks and a white dog. Naruto saw himself in the strange and unknown boy at a bathhouse. He saw them fighting. He saw himself cry with him. He saw himself be sad. He saw him die, old and still as annoying as before. Even after all these years, Kiba was still annoying as hell. That knowing smirk and lecherous grin. Kiba knew how to live life to the fullest, and whether he wanted to admit it or not, reincarnation or just random illusions, Inuzuka Kiba was one of his closest friends. The rapid download of every memory he ever shared with his dead friend was enough to push his fragile mind back into the real MNOF unconsciousness. The darkness a welcome friend as Naruto fell into the sweet embrace of Morpheus. As sweat dripped from his brows, Naruto wondered how he now found himself in such a precarious position. He was hugging a tree, seriously a tree. It has all been a part of his mother's training regiment, but he has been doing this for a week. Casting, as his mother chose to call it whenever Naruto lit up and short-circuited the electrical wiring of their modest two-floor cabin, was a refined art. It was an advanced form of divination, and a perfect way to connect to the aura of the world. But of all the people who ever got a chance to learn magic or how to initiate miracles or weave spells, he had to be born to a mother who believed a stronger body made for a stronger mind. It was ridiculous. He may not have all his memories of his old life back, but he had spent 16 years on this world. Majority of it he spent playing RPG games, and he knew for sure that all magical players always focus on their mental acuity to cast their spells, but his mom seems to think that spells will shoot out his butt if he could bench press 1,000 pounds, which is impossible, right? So far Naruto had only been able to produce a basic light spell. And even then it was a flickering wisp of a thing. His mother says he was doing better than most people his age. Ordinary people will take months or a year or two to be able to meditate enough and develop any magic power. Naruto did it in a week after his awakening. Of course, according to his mother, there were some prodigies who learned to sense the form of magic energy in less than 20 seconds. The current record was actually 12 seconds. Which of course brings us back to the point of Naruto hugging a tree. Naruto had no martial arts training, and what he remembered from his past life was not enough for him to be able to hold himself in a fight. To make matters worse, his old memories only come in phases. He needs a stimulus or certain connections or reminders of familiar things to be able to remember something from his past life. So now he was stuck learning from his mother. The art of hugging a tree is the most annoying lesson he had been made to learn this past week. His mother had said everything in life and creation exist within a constant revolving circle. Yin and yang pushed and pulled at each other in constant harmony and balance of the world. To be able to properly tap into his powers and learn to fight, he must understand the concept of a circle. A circle is a creation of absolute defense, absolute evasion and unyielding attack. There are no edges, no angles, in a circle everything is shown and all is hidden, it is the very essence of the world. Naruto suddenly had another recall. He was younger, more rougher and uncut, and he was climbing a tree, without using his hands. The feeling of keeping a constant harmonic flux with the surface of a tree in order not to fall off was quite easy to understand. He had to learn to give, and to take, to find a balance within an exchange, to be and not to be, but one in nature and himself. With that understanding another slew of memories grabbed him, this one quite intense and unruly like the wave of an angry sea, a mountain, colorful, strange and filled with toads of huge sizes, the feelings of nature, the art of being still, to connect and be empowered by it, sage mode. Naruto rocked away from the tree, pushed away by a force of repulsion that chafed the skin of his arms raw as they bled crimson. The tree which has been his constant companion for the past 4 days, rapidly petrifying and turning to stone. Naruto gasped for breath. He was spent, drained, but for some reason he could not help but grin and cry at the same time. His time with the toads, every waking hour he spent on that mountain was as clear to him like it was yesterday. Every bug or worm he had to eat, every hit he had to take from that despicable black stick, and every prank he had to endure from Gamakichi. The toads were his family. They were there for him the second time he lost a father. They made him strong. Naruto bit his fingers as he moved them rapidly in the seals required for the toad summoning. Their contract was one of the soul, so maybe it can transcend dimensions or different planets. He slammed his palms to the ground as a bright light enveloped the area. He felt the earth rapidly draining what was left of his energy and a substantial part of his life force. Naruto blacked out from the pain, his attempts at summoning the toads a failure. He was awake moments later. He felt weak and bound to the ground, his energy depleted. Naruto looked at his skin and almost flinched at what he saw. His skin was withered gray and bony. He really looked like he had the life sucked out of him. He dragged himself to the foot of another tree, nestling himself among its roots like a mother's embrace. He could hear it. The heartbeat of the tree was slow, very slow, but Naruto was connected enough to feel it, to feel this tree's connection to the next, and the next, a whole forest of trees breathing and pulsing with life. He could feel a light, in each and every one of them. He could not help himself as he coaxed those flecks of light to himself. He felt them come in, felt them settle, and a feeling almost as intense as a climax overwhelmed him in all its glory. He felt like a drowning man who has taken a breath of fresh air after an hour underwater. He felt this light, this life enter his body as it replaced what was lost, and repaired what was broken. He felt stronger, faster, his skin became more vibrant, his senses stronger, and he took it in, more and more until he could take no more, and then he opened his eyes. It was in that position his mother found him, shocked, scared, and surrounded by half a forest of dead trees, many of them blackened past their green vibrancy. It felt like a blight had come and settled in this part of the forest. It carried with it a feeling of intense death. His mother wrapped her arms around him as she whispered. This is the power of a discrucis Naruto. The power over life, the power of death, it's the power of God himself. I want you to remember what you are feeling right now. It is easy to take a life, but it is much harder to give it back. As punishment for this blunder, rushing ahead in your training like this without guardianship, you will have to give life back to this forest, to pay back in equivalent exchange every speck of life you have taken. If I was here I would be dead. If we were in a city, it would have been genocide. You would have killed thousands if not millions of living things, men, women, children, animals, even a bacteria. None would have been able to survive. You must learn retrained and you must learn control. Above all you need a stronger body to handle your flux of power. Now go inside and get cleaned up. Naruto trudged back into the cabin, his recent actions weighing heavily on his mind, but his back was turned so he was not able to see the look of absolute horror on his mother's face as she took in the sight of the desolation her son had caused. Akeno moved the stray lock of hair behind her ears in a huff. The evening wind had seemed most adamant in messing up her hair. But she loved the feelings of nostalgia it evoked. Later on in their marriage, when she and Naruto had gotten quite old, her husband had developed the ability to control his wind nature chakra to an astonishing degree. He was powerful to the point he could command the elements with his will alone. But what did the old bastard do with such a thing? He busied himself using it to flip her dresses, or to tear them to shreds when they got in the way of his research. Much like his master before him, her husband had become a lecherous old man, but at least only she had known that side of him. After all, Naruto had an image to protect as someone who remained uncorrupted by the machinations of his perverted teacher Jiraiya. Akeno took a sip of the cough in her hand. It was bland, horrible and bitter, but she still steeled her stomach in resolve as she threw the vile contents into her stomach. She had searched for 2 weeks. The school term was entering into its final month. In all that time no one had asked about what happened to Naruto, except maybe Kiba and Rias, and surprisingly enough Issei. Akeno could not blame them for what happened. Of course it did not mean she was happy. Her relationship with her president had taken a huge hit, but Rias was trying to make amends, even if she did not know why Akeno was so distant from her. After all, Naruto was Kiba's friend. No one could understand what sort of relationship they had. Kiba's message of Naruto taking his own life was just a front. They were devils. Finding out the truth out of lies was something they could do quite well. After all, they invented it. Naruto was indeed injured. If sources were to be believed, when he was being taken out of the house by the ambulance there was a knife in his chest. His mother had conveniently told the neighbors who were around that her son tried to kill himself, and she sold it quite well. The stuff was all over the news. But as of right now, members of the Orc were conducting their own investigation. The ambulance carrying Naruto never got to any hospital within Kuo or its neighboring cities. Not even the underground hospitals and criminal doctors had any idea where they were. Naruto and his mother disappeared into thin air, almost as if they never existed in the first place. For the past week she had taken to watching their empty house every evening till midnight, looking for clues that will lead her to either his body or the whereabouts of his mother. God, even a grave will be appreciated. She just wanted to know what happened to him or if he was okay. She may have made a promise to stay away from him, but she could not sit idly back if her husband was in trouble. Even though they were no longer married and Naruto had absolutely no recollection of who he was or she is, her heart and soul would only belong to one man, regardless of if he remembered her or not. Akeno perked up as a hooded and cloaked figure exited Naruto's house. She had been waiting hours for this person. It was the only way she could get any lead on Naruto's whereabouts. As the person moved towards her she could not shake the shiver of fear that went through her spine. Devil or not, there were much darker things that existed in this world. As soon as the creature was within range, Akeno heard the rasping sound of sizzling flesh. There was a particular sound the flesh of living things made when they were burnt. She was quite familiar with it. More often than not, that sound was almost accompanied with a bout of intense pleasure for her. She loved to hurt things, to hear them scream and see them squirm as they fall prey to her delicious lightning. But this entity in front of her took all pleasure away from her when she hears the sound he makes whenever he moved. Instead, a feeling of abject terror always rose within her heart. I have checked and scryed the house. This thing in front of her was a wraith, a spirit of magic, despair and death that is cursed to remain stuck on earth and roam about feeding on the despair and pain of the living, while they are also in constant pain as nature itself attacks and burns them for being an abomination in its sight. And what did you find? Wraith. Akeno spat the word out like she had chewed on dirt. The wraith ignored her tone as it continued to explain in an eerily raspy voice. The boy never tried to kill himself, and at the time of the murder, there were only two people in that house, the boy and his mother. Akeno scrunched her eyebrows in confusion as she asked the wraith. What do you mean by that? You know exactly what I mean. Akeno narrowed her eyes, as her hair began to rise up of its own accord, invisible sparks of lightning rapidly dancing in between each individual follicles. Don't play games with me, wraith. Speak clearly and drop the vagueness. I have no time for this and neither do you. The wraith hissed in anger as it moved back a few steps from Akeno. No one, not even a Kirin, will want to take a dose of holy lightning to any part of their body, much less a wraith. Akeno was famous for torturing creatures of the dark before she ended their existence, when they're nothing more than a broken heap of trash at her feet. What I am saying is that the mother killed the boy, or at least tried to. I saw it with my own eyes. You know what I can do, and am not stupid enough to test you. As soon as she stabbed him with a ceremonial blade of sorts, she used his blood to make a spell matrix, though I am sure it was a sealing array of unknown origin. Then she called the ambulance. After that she gave him a potion that healed his wounds, and then she cast an illusion on her son to make it seem like he was still injured, and then the ambulance came and took them away. Akeno was sure everything the wraith said was true. Wraiths had the ability to see the history of a place, especially those that had a history of unfortunate incubants. It was quite obvious at first the creature wanted to withhold some information at first. Why? She did not know, neither did she care, but what mattered to her was that Naruto was okay, even though she had no idea what game Kushina was playing. But mother-in-law or not, if that woman hurt him, which of course is funny since she already did so, in that regard Akeno was going to find her and introduce her to the meaning of pain. No one hurts Naruto, not even his mother. Rias was still alive because Akeno could understand her hurting Naruto was not intentionally. I have given you what you wanted, now release me from this infernal contract. Akeno gave a predatory smirk as she faced the wraith, lightning dancing between her fingertips. No, ple, ace, you promised to set me free. Oh, did I? I never remembered making that sort of promise, but don't worry, this is not going to hurt much, after the first 30 minutes that is. The wraith turned around to make a run for it, in order to save its pitiful afterlife. But a glowing barrier made of lightning came down and it became trapped with the object of nightmares for many creatures of the dark for the past few years. Its screams rend the night, delivering unholy screeches that would make most grown men soil themselves in fright, and nestled in between those screeches was the moaning voice of a woman as she made sweet, sweet music with the voice of a wraith in pain, and she loved every second of it. Naruto had paid close focus to his training for the past month and some weeks. If his mother was to be believed, he had come a lot farther than anyone else who had to learn magic or any sort of abilities in the past. In just his first month, Naruto had mastered the art of sensing magic, to sense the connection of nature as it fed the well of mana in his body. In regards to magic, the process of using is much like how a tree lived. He drew mana from nature, and when he used that mana to create spells, he would expend it, thereby releasing back into its natural circle, to be purified and used again. When Naruto took in mana from nature, he is able to process it from its raw form, give it purpose and direction, and make it bend to its will. Every time he had to take in mana from nature, a process of self-assimilation happens where Naruto absorbs the mana and makes it his own. The process of doing this is almost instinctive, as the body can do this on its own. When the mana has been absorbed, it becomes branded with Naruto's own soul seal and presence, bonding the mana to himself and making it wholly his own. It is then Naruto can make use of the mana to cast spells. So far he had learnt the basic fireball spell, a frost spell, an earth shield, and how to heal using the element of water as a base. All this a flare, just the most basic of magic spells. His mother had told him they helped refine his mana and give him better control over it. Also, these spells can be made personal, and it is done in such a way that the caster can improve on the spell's abilities, taking it to a whole other level and recreating it, or evolving it to a form entirely dependent on the caster's magic and imagination. Magic was somehow quite simple for Naruto to grasp due to how simple it seemed. Of course, at higher levels of understanding he could learn to do things with magic that will make what he knows now seem like parlor tricks. It was all a matter of time. With his abilities in magic, he could now be considered an apprentice mage. In order to get to Journey Mage, he has to learn how to rune craft and cast. This was a level of magic that focused on using and channeling power through the use of the nature's own created language. Runes. Runes had a plethora of uses and are more versatile to use than ordinary spells, but they take long to prepare and are not very useful in the heat of battle unless they have been prepared ahead of time. Runes could be used to channel things from as basic as an ordinary fire spell to as advanced as a dimension hopping or body switching spell. Runes could do anything and last longer if not indefinitely. A mage can put a protection rune on a house today and not return for another 100 years. Depending on its style of creation, it will still be there, protecting and deterring all individuals from causing harm to that building. Runes are powered by two basic style of crafting. The basic focuses of using a mage's mana to activate it and use it for short burst of time. For example, if a mage tattoos a fire rune on his palm, when activated he would be able to cast the fire spell the rune is patterned after. The next is the advanced form of crafting where the rune is given the mana system of a practicing mage, allowing it to take in mana from nature to strengthen and keep itself activated constantly and indefinitely. But he had no time to focus on one part of his training. This was all basic stuff according to his mother. The fact that he was able to learn it in a month flat was quite good. But according to his mother, it was impressive but not outstanding. Naruto was not a genius, he was just a hard worker, and now he would have to channel that hard-working spirit into the next part of his training. Light weaving, the ability to be a walking arsenal. Just like the angels who use it, Naruto had three distinct sources of power and energy in his body. Human life force, which resonates with nature to create mana that is unique to mortal living beings on earth. The holy energy used by angels, their power comes from light and the power of creation. They practically play with souls in its physical form, only without a consciousness or purpose. With their using of light and creation they create in the same way God creates man. That was why the attacks hurt devils a lot. The light constructs of angels are souls given form, but not living souls or the souls of the dead, just souls. Their counterpart fallen angels on the other hand develop a corrosive quality to THWIR light weaving abilities when they fell. Their power stems from creation too, but it is doused in the energy of the sin that made them fall. And finally demonic energy, which is what devils were thousands of years ago. Before they evolved, there are still demons hiding in the deepest end part of the underworld. Creatures of wrath, destruction and death, a far cry from their evolved cousin the devils. Devils used demonic energy, the pure form of sin, it is their own mana. As sin runs rampant both in the underworld and very much on earth too, this was a very dangerous energy source that without the natural physique of a devil, its user might find itself smothered and consumed to become the very embodiment of sin itself, a hate-fia, lust-driven, wrath-bringing force of destruction. They humans or other creatures who turn fall to this are called the Forgotten. The devils call theirs strays. Naruto, the art of light weaving is vastly different from casting spells or magic as a whole. Magic is an intellectual art or way of manipulating the very essence of nature, but in magic we give back what we take. I am not an angel, but what I know about it is something I learnt from your father, and before you even think of asking, we are not going to talk about your father, either one of them, at least not to today. As I was saying, magic comes from the mind. It comes from understanding and control. That's why learning magic has to deal with a lot of studying, but light weaving, the inherent art of angels and their followers, focuses solely on the heart, on the positives of every situation. It thrives on feelings, positive feelings that is. It is what makes angels the masters of controlling their emotions and their desires.
Kushina knew for a fact that this lesson was very limited. She was pressed for time, but this was the best she could do for now. When she had been with Michael, the Archangel had a side that not many people knew about. He loved to talk a lot. In fact, he was so good at it Kushina was not surprised he was the leader of the angels. He was a natural-born politician.
The little she knew now was what she learned from him. During the course of their marriage, she was forced to end things, of course, since she had rather nefarious plans when she married him. Naruto was a pleasant surprise from that union. She had to leave before Naruto was born, because casting a spell where you dragged the soul of your son and his wife through dimensions for rebirth was not something you can do with an angel around, especially when you think about how much life it cost. So Naruto, in order to be able to weave light to an acceptable degree, you have to be able to be happy all the time, all sunshine and rainbows, but that is as far as I know or understand about light weaving. I am sorry if it is limited, but the best I can say is that you need to learn to control your emotions or feel the good ones to very high degree, so ultimately think happy thoughts or find your happy place. With that she left him with shocked expression on his face. It was not as if she was abandoning him to figure out that part of his abilities on his own. Okay, she was sort of, maybe kinda, a little bit abandoning him, but he was her baby. She was sure he would be able to figure it out. After all, his angel side counted for half of his gene pool. Kushina made her way down the mountain that has been their home for the past month and a few weeks. She appreciated the isolation. It instilled a sense of peace she had not felt in a long time. Kushina knew for a fact she was a little unhinged. She made decisions on a whim and sometimes did things that will scare the next N person into an early grave, but never once had she played with her son's life until now. She was gambling, and Naruto's future was hanging in the balance. Everyone was scrambling, preparing for a war they all knew would come sooner or later. Everyone wanted to have the strongest weapons and the best allies, and right in the middle of this war was her son. Well, not him alone, as select individuals of his generation also have a stake in the way this war was going to go. As a mother, she could not help but be terrified. Her son in danger rubbed off on HWR wrongly and in so many ways. But as a soldier, she felt an almost unhinged thrill deep in her bones. Kushina loved the battlefield. It was in her blood, her bones, and her very soul. Legends had it that the founder of the original Uzumaki clan back in the elemental nations had killed so many people that their collective blood had turned his hair red, as he was cursed with an unshakable bloodlust and want for war, and as such his children and his children's children to all coming generation will share this unending lust for blood and war. Kushina was not too worried. Just like in her past life, she had been doused in so much blood that every part of her body had been the same blood red that was her hair. Her enemies then gave her the name Red Death, and now she had been, until she became pregnant and experienced a thrill and high more intoxicating than taking a life on the battlefield. Being a mother changed her, and that is why her character now showed the great lengths she would go and take just to keep her son safe. At the foot of the mountain, there was a tool shed. It looked quite dilapidated as nature had run its course. It was covered with vines and was in a state of serious disrepair. Kushina opened the door that was barely hanging on its hinges with absolutely no care for the creaking sound it made. The interior of the shed was just as bad as its exterior, if not for the single fact that right in the middle of the shed was a teleportation rune. Kushina could have teleported using her devil magic, but such an act always leaves residual signatures that can be tracked. The rune, however, already has a fixed point and a definite expenditure of mana. Since it already has stored mana in its reserves, it had no need to draw destination points through the ley lines in the earth, in order to teleport a GPS of sorts as needed. And this GPS is the ley lines that run through the very fabric of reality in the earth itself. They are veins of immense magical power and properties, and the tampering of one could level a city or in worst case scenarios the whole planet. Ley lines are also interconnected veins of mana, like a telephone lines. The traveler then uses the teleport spell to travel above a ley line source, drawing power from it to instantly get to their destination. Due to the nature of the ley line veins, which makes it seem like a huge ball of yarn or threads, everything is connected, so moving from one ley line to another only needs a magic spell and voila, teleportation. Kushina moved right to the center and sent her mana into the rune to activate it. Immediately the world turned upside down and colors swam in her eyesight, giving her an intense feeling of vertigo and nausea. It ended almost as suddenly as it began. Kushina found herself in a photo booth. Taking a minute to reorient herself, she came out of the booth and into the smoke and sweat-ridden atmosphere of a club. Why would a photo booth be in a club? Kushina could not give a proper answer. Her decision to leave the return point of her teleportation rune and leave it inside of a club was just a spur-of-the-moment decision, not to mention she owned the club. There's a lot to be said for a woman who owned a club. It was the hub of very dark and illegal things, but in this case it was central and focal point of supernatural entity in Kuo. It's probably one of the few places in the whole world where you can see members of both the devil faction and fallen faction coming around just to chill and relax. No angel will be caught dead in such a place. It will probably ruin their holy mojo. Fights were forbidden, and even more frowned upon were interfaction fights. If such a thing happens, that person was not leaving this club alive. Kushina ran her business with a certain slew of rules. Breaking one of them had dire consequences, and not to mention she had very powerful backers. She skirted the dance floor and headed for the second floor. From there she entered a private room wherein a door with runes was located. Officially this club had 3 floors. Unofficially, however, was that the club had a secret floor, or you could say a secret building snugly nestled in an alternate dimension. It was from there Kushina truly ran her operations as the most powerful information broker in the whole world. In her past life she was just a lowly soldier and the wife to a king, you might say. But in this life she traded in secrets, both of the mortal and supernatural world. She was Jiraiya on a whole other level of badass, and she was dangerous. As she made her way to the stairs that will take her to the 3rd floor of this modest establishment of hers, she had to acknowledge the greetings of her workers. They were of different races. Literally, she had gnomes, werewolves, vampires, even mythical demons and creatures working for her. Power was a wonderful thing, and Nisha loved every moment that she held it. Her office was huge, dark, and gave a sex dungeon kind of vibe. Of course it was nothing of the sort. After being married to Michael, she had decided to swear of men of any kind. No offense to them, but none of them were coarse. It would seem she was just using Michael as a means to an end when she married him. That would not be a lie, but that was also her last chance of moving on and loving again. It did not work out, so now she rather focus all of her energy into making this world a better place for her son and ensuring he was strong enough to protect himself. Kushina HD, a huge screen on the wall opposite her desk. She made a call and the screen divided itself into 3 parts as 3 figures were seen on it. Kushina, it's been a long time. I can't tell you good it is to see you well. Keep the sentiments out of this, Michael. This call is not a social one, but if it's all the same to you, it's good to see you too. Ho ho ho. I see there's still tension between the two of you. Maybe you need to get in a bedroom and straighten things out. I know a place where you can make the magic happen. I see your mind is still as vulgar as ever, Azazel. It's no wonder you fell. Don't you dare point fingers, Shizurches. My little birds told me you just took another concubine, which makes it what now, 9. I wonder what Graphia has to say about that. It's none of your business, Azazel. Leave the devil alone. Besides, you are infinitely worse than him. Don't you have 30 women warming your bed? Ah, is my big brother jealous? That should be expected after all the women you fell in love with cheated on you just so you can divorce according to the laws laid down by our father. Speaking of which, how is the old man? It's hard to imagine what he is going through, having to deal with your moody ass all day. And so on and so forth. Every time they met this happened. Even though they wanted peace, it was hard to wash away the hundreds if not thousands of years of bloodshed and war. The bad blood was deep. Even though they are striving for a change, it was why every time they met they could not help but throw jabs at each other. To be honest, as far as Kushina was concerned, this level of bromance was sickening. They respected each other, that much was obvious, but boys will boys and no one will want to admit Thiernside was in the wrong. It was this particular attitude that had prompted the creation of 2 new factions that till now still escapes their knowledge. They might have idea of one, but of the other they are blissfully ignorant. Boys, enough. When this meeting is over you can meet up and suck each other's dicks or compare whose own is bigger, but at this moment, I want your freaking attention. Her hair was floating, strands and clumps dividing itself into 9 pieces that looked very much like tails. Kushina was almost 40, half human, yes, and she might live longer than most humans. But not as long as devils, but in her short lifespan. This woman could wipe the floor, all of them, without breaking a sweat.
She had power and much of it, but it was to be expected. She was half human, the only race with the highest potential for growth. Humans could achieve anything, do anything. They are the very source of power for all the factions, and this woman in front of them, even if she was only half, was the most powerful human woman on the planet, or in all the realms. Her rate of growth was astonishing. Until today nobody knew how she obtained such power.
I don't have time, so listen. Don't talk or interrupt. Listen. The Chaos Brigade is not the faction you have to be worried about. Sure, they pose a danger to you considering they are a combination of all three races and some extras, but the thing they just want to be left alone, well, most of them anyway. Their leader is a negligent dragon who just wants to go home, so she give free rein to her subordinates when she has no task for them. That's bad management, trust me, and it will come and bite her, him or whatever the hell that lowly bitch is in the ass. Your main concern now should be the human faction, otherwise known as the Chosen. What? One more word from you, Azazel, and I will rip out your tongue slowly and spoon-feed it to you with a healthy dose of pestilence. Azazel quickly shut his mouth. Of course there's no way Kushina could harm him that easily, it will cost her, but he knew she could do it, and he liked his tongue where it was. Thank you very much. As I was saying, the human faction have been on the rise since the 1500s. No matter how careful you all are, you should know humans are special. And 10% of the whole population can develop the true sight, that you stupid idiots have been battling on this plane of existence for so long that all this energy, even with nature helping you to refine and return it back to the great circle, some of it are bound to escape, and with that escape humans have evolved. They have always had magic, but now they have bloodlines, people with special abilities. Some of them have lived way longer than I have. And what they all have in common is that, whether in the past wars, or the little skirmishes that happened today, this war has caused huge losses for them. They are coming for revenge. They have technology that can deal some serious damage to all of you, not to mention they now know of a weapon that can destroy you all. As I'm speaking to you, they are making plans to acquire that weapon, and if properly utilized, there will be nothing left. It will be the end of days as we known it, both for the underworld and heaven. So any questions? What is this weapon and can we destroy it? Michael, always the cool-headed one, and always looking for solutions. Honestly, it's none of the reasons I married, your good leadership qualities. But if you ever again mention destroying this weapon, there's no two ways about it. I am going to kill you. After all, what kind of father wants to destroy his own son? What now? Oh shit, you got her knocked up, bro. Good for you. Now your son is going to kill us all. What a fucking family picture. Azazel, your mouth is going to get you killed one day. Just hope it's not by my hand. And yes, Michael, we have a son. His name is Naruto. He's 16 years old this year. In fact, his birthday should be under a month away. Now what I need from the three of you is protection. Strong as I am, I can't fight an entire faction by myself. Also, this should never leave your mouths or I will hunt you all down and send you to my own personal hell, since the real one does not work as expected. My son, our son Michael, is a discrucis. Good God. That's it, I was right. We are all going to die. Shizurches, say something. What do you need us to do? Thank you, Shizurches. It's good to see you in a serious mood. Anyway, in a month I will be returning back to Kuo with my son. You guys have a meeting scheduled then, right? Good. For now he is undergoing basic training. First of Michael, the first needs someone to train him. He needs to learn how to be an angel. Secondly, Azazel, I will send you a prototype of sorts that 5 of my best scientists have been working on. I need you to collaborate with Ajuka and have it ready in a month's time. It's something only the both of you can do, and I am sure you would love a new project. Shizurches, Kuo is your family's territory. I need you to guarantee protection for my son, and that's all I need. My plans ultimately I can't tell them to you, but I need you all to trust me when I say it will be beneficial for everybody. It will end all wars. But prepare yourselves, prepare your armies, and cement your alliances. The storm that is coming will need to be weathered with friends by your side. Excuse me, Kushina. Yes, Azazel, in the end what do we gain from this? What you gain? How about not dying? It gives us a chance to end centuries of bloodshed. This coming war is all your faults. Even angels that were tasked by God to protect humanity fell short of their calling. Now humanity knees rising up in arms against you. Be honest with me, do you think you can survive such an uprising? They will not stop until your blood is NUSCD to water the earth for the next 1,000 years. I am coming up with a plan that will prevent the need for war, but will paint a target on me and my son's back. But until such a time as I'm sure my actions in preventing a clash with humanity will not get me or my son killed, you three will prepare for war, and hope with all your hearts that it does not break out. Because if it does, nothing will be safe, not your home, not your people, not your families, nothing at all. With her piece said, she terminated the call. She had probably given them a lot to think about, but all this was necessary. It was at time like this she wished Minato was around. He always knew how to deal with such pressure. Kushina hugged herself as a wave of loneliness crashed into her. She missed her husband. Nothing against Michael though, he tried his best, but her heart was not in it. All she had now was her son, and whether this world liked it or not, she would damn them all to hell to keep him safe. The new appendage connected to his back was quite uncomfortable. It made him use muscles he never knew he had and left his back aching for hours. Seriously, wings are overrated. At least when you were learning how to use it. Naruto flew in unsteady loops and shaky turns. On occasion he would find himself suddenly dropping from the sky like a meteor. If he was lucky, he would regain control just in time to keep himself from face-planting on the ground. It was safe to say he was more unlucky than lucky. Flying gave a sense of freedom that could hardly be contested with, even though it was done with squiggly maneuvers. He hated learning to fly even though he loved the act itself. His teacher had said he was a natural, but he was sure she was being biased. After all, who wouldn't love to praise your own nephew? His father's twin sister was rather eccentric. In fact, you could say she was even more of a child than he was. Not that he would admit to being childish. It has only been 3 days since they met, and in all that time she had done nothing but dote on him and teach him to fly. Although with limited results, he did not know how to respond to her most of the time, since he did not know her, and even worse was the knowledge that he had a father out there, and if words were to be believed, they would be seeing each other in anything from a month's time. Naruto, come down a bit. Let's try something else. Naruto managed to not make that much of a fool out of himself as he landed rather ungracefully, but at least he landed on his feet. What do you think about when you are happy? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Is there a point to that question? Of course there is. Stop staring at my breast and tell me. Naruto fell into a coughing fit. He actually thought he was very discreet. How had she noticed him? Though to be honest, she had one of the biggest racks he had ever seen. What was God thinking creating an angel with this much sex appeal? It was causing great damage to his teenage mind. An explosion went off inside his head. Images, pure, vivid and accompanied with intention and emotions, swam in his eyesight. It went fast like a movie on fast forward. But somehow he was able to understand and see every memory for what it was. He was able to feel it, to connect to that person that he was when all this happened. She was annoying, a drunkard, a chronic gambler with a long history of losses. She was also his adopted grandmother, and his mother at the same time. He loved her so much, way too much, and he knew she loved him too. Naruto was a lot different from who he was in his past life, but heaven be damned, he missed his Obeken. He missed her a lot. He could not stop the stream of tears that flowed down his face. Such a change in personality shocked Gabriel, but she just held him as he cried like a baby. The intense feeling of loss and heartache was so much that Naruto felt like he was going to die, but she held him, and then she sang to him. Naruto had no idea what song that was, but he loved it. She sang of loss, of need, of happiness, and it did not make everything better, but it made everything clearer. Naruto accepted his loss like any other man would when they find themselves in such a situation. Tsunade. The very whisper of her name caused ripples in his heart as his memories still gave him an ache, but life must go on. She was not here anymore, he was, and it was up to him to live his life for them, all of them. Thank you. But I'm fine now, are you sure? Yes, so let's continue with the lesson. Okay then. First of all, I want to tell you the reason I chose to teach you how to fly. An angel's abilities are driven by an intense feeling of freedom. We're not free of our emotions, instead it is what drives us to be who we are. So we learn control. We learn how to categorize and inventory our emotions. We are not completely free from it, so instead we tap into a different feeling. The feelings you get when you are cruising at 200 miles an hour. The sky your domain and the birds your followers. To feel the wind in your hair and appreciate nature as it relates with the sky. It is almost impossible for any angel to not feel that sense of freedom when flying, but to be honest, these are just training wheels, because in time angels get so used to the feeling of freedom, which is always guided by their positive emotions, that they just disconnect. Our emotions become a switch that goes on and off at will, but for now that is something that will take you years to achieve, regardless of how much of a hard worker you are. So for now I want you to fly, but don't go above 20 feet, stay as stationary as possible and meditate. Your emotions might be a bit off whack now, but that is a good thing. Not that a 16-year-old boy crying is a pretty sight. You need to sift through all those emotions and find the one that works best for you. You need to let it fill you up, draw from it and accept as a part of you. Then center it by channeling it to your heart. Emotions are energy too, even though they are created by your brain's reaction to certain things, and then from there, use your imagination. Naruto understood everything she had just said. To be honest, of all the lessons and books he had been given to learn from this past 2 months, this was the easiest thing he understood. Of course, maybe that had to do with the fact that he was mainly angel than devil or human, even if it seems he had all natures in balance. Naruto hovered at 20 feet above the ground. The sun set on his face, casting shadows as it peeked between the tall trees of the surrounding forest. There was an abundance of life here. Even the almost 3 or 4 kilometers of ash and desolation he caused when he sucked the life out of a few trees was showing signs of recovery, which such a sight, it was hard not to feel relaxed and at peace. Naruto felt free. It was a wonderful feeling. He felt unshackled by his past, his memories, his mother and secrets she keeps, his father and the strangeness of his family, his love for Rias seemed almost trivial in the face of all this responsibility and expectations he had shoveled onto his shoulders. To be honest, he was not sure he had time for love at the moment. Maybe when he met up with Rias again, they could talk and then he could give Issei a punch or two for good measure. Naruto felt a stream of heat, or more like a stream of energy that hardly gave off a characteristics of heat or fire. It was just there, abstract yet connected, solid yet intangible. He guided the energy to his heart as he let his imagination run wild. He led the energy all over his body, touching everything and leaving nothing, but all this felt slow to Naruto. He wished he had a bigger brain or at least two bodies to make this go faster. Naruto played with the energy and he felt a tinge of it go out, along with what he could only describe as his will or consciousness. Naruto opened his eyes and standing before him, or should he say floating, was a glowing clone of himself. Everything down to the almost imperceptible birthmarks on his cheeks were there. Light weaving was powered by emotions, but it did not change what it really was at its core, a power to create and one unique to angels alone. Hi, I am Naruto. His clone looked at him like he had grown a second head. Seriously, are you introducing yourself to me? It seems you just keep getting dumber and dumber. Naruto was incensed. Who did this clone think he is, the foolish copy? Who the hell are you calling dumb, you fool? You are me, stupid, which means you are also calling yourself dumb. How stupid can you be? I think the question is how stupid can you be instead, seeing as you are also insulting me, makes me stick to my claim, you are dumb. How dare you, I think, and so on and so forth. This was quite comical to see Naruto having a quarrel with himself. This had taken the talking to myself to a whole other level, and while the two Narutos were busy trying to out-curse and insult the other, Gabriel was still on the ground with a shocked look on her face as she watched the whole drama. A clone, a clone. The thought just kept running through her head that it got to the point she couldn't hold it in anymore. What the fuck just happened? Issei scratched his head as he looked at the board in front of him. He could not understand the need for chess. The game was boring, and as far as he was concerned his IQ was not built for it. Opposite him Akeno gave a sigh. He couldn't tell whether she was just frustrated with his lack of abilities or she was bothered by something else. Either way he hoped she sighed again. The movement her boobs made was just heavenly. Issei loved where he was now. It was better than what he would have expected in his wildest dreams or imagination. Sexy girls everywhere and a low ratio of boys to contend with him for their affections, but he was stuck playing chess with Akeno, under orders from Rias to raise his tactical and battle abilities. It was obviously not working. Issei drew motivation from Eki stuff and without a look from some tantalizing boobs he could not be pushed to do anything. But all this was the fault of that fallen angel Kokabiel. The guy had attacked them in a bid to recombine all the broken pieces of the sword Excalibur. They won, and even had a new member join their club, but it was quite obvious their relationship were not the same as it was when he first came.
Kiba avoided anything that will join him with Issei like a plague, and Akeno did not smile as much and kept a healthy distance from him and Rias. Naruto going missing changed a lot of things. Since further investigation proved that he was still alive, Akeno and Kiba have been relentlessly looking for him. Kiba was Naruto's best friend, so naturally he would look for him, but no one knew what relationship Naruto and Akeno had to make her so invested in looking for him.
But with what he had recently been through, Issei knew he was not as strong as he was supposed to be. A pervert he may be, but he wanted to be there for all of his friends, to protect and take care of them from forces that will seek to harm them. In a way Issei had to admit that he missed Naruto. They were not really friends, but they had got along really well. Naruto had been able to give a sense of normalcy regardless of whatever crazy stuff was going on in the occult research club. Issei never knew how he felt about Rias. As a boy this was something he would have been able to understand. And honestly he was not sure what he would have done if he found out earlier. I mean, this was Rias they were talking about here. She was not like most girls and Issei could see why Naruto could have fallen so hard in love with her. But those humongous boobs was not something he wanted to give up under any circumstances. Issei was sure he was also in love with Rias too, or at least her body, but what was the difference? As far as he was concerned it was the same thing. And with Rias by his side, Issei was sure he would achieve his ultimate goal of becoming a harem king. Enough of this. I give up. Akeno, what's wrong you? You don't listen. You never pay attention and you have spent the past 15 minutes doing nothing but staring at my breast, and quite honestly am sick of it. Issei had no idea how to respond to Akeno's outburst. He never expected her to lash out like this. Sure, he had been subjected to ridicule and attacks due to his perverted nature, but all this was for the good of all hot-blooded males around the world. He was a pervert for their pride, but Akeno looked like she really wanted to kill him. What's the matter, Akeno? You never had a problem with Issei before. In fact you used to tease him endlessly. Why change now? Is this about Naruto again? You know none of that is Issei's fault. Well, you want to know what problem I have with Issei? Well, I'll tell you. First off, the way he looks at me thoroughly disgusts me. As a devil there's a threshold of bullshit and unreasonable actions that I can take, but Issei just crossed it. I am not some sort of sex idol to be used in the fantasies of a disgusting pig with no self-control of a teenage boy like Issei. I chose to be nice to him, tease him, entice him on your orders, to make him feel welcomed. After all, he was the one who would save you from Riser, and I'm thankful for that. But has your oversized breast and foolish ego, not to mention this strange sense of hero worship you have going on, blinded you to the fact that this guy, Issei, is all kinds of wrong and has a complete and total disregard for the opposite sex? He has no respect for women apart from how hard they can make orgasm when he's jacking off, not to mention his is not the right man for you. Staying with this idiot will put your families and your own reputation in jeopardy. It is only a matter of time before his stupid mouth put us all in a situation we can't escape from. You are better off with an ordinary human being than him. I knew it. Akeno, all this is still about Naruto, right? I get that he might be in danger if he was taken by my enemies according to Kiba's theory, but I am trying my best to find him. I know his disappearance has harmed our relationship even if you refuse to tell me why. While I trying my best and pulling all the stops, not just because how much he means to you and Kiba, but because he is also a member of the Orc. Trust me, I am trying, but I can't become too invested in looking for him that I will put the rest of you in jeopardy. After all, to the outsider he is nothing more than an insignificant human being, so taking out your frustrations on Issei, who is a part of our family, is not right. Issei did not know much about girls outside of porns and staring at their boobs for long periods of time, but he knew Rias just made a huge blunder calling Naruto insignificant and ordinary. The sparks dancing all over Akeno was enough indications that shit was about to hit the fan. Buchu, did you just call Naruto insignificant and ordinary? Ha ha ha. Oh, the irony, the ignorance, the stupidity. How dare you call my husband insignificant? You are not even fit to lick his boots, much less be his servant, and you call him insignificant. I am going to kill you. And that was when the lightning flew. It struck Rias with such force that it drove her through the wall behind her and out into the woods that backed up the old school building. Never in his wildest thoughts did Issei think Akeno will attack Rias. She was the queen of her peerage, the best friend of Rias and someone who Issei had admired for being loyal to her friend. But of course at the moment what really struck Issei as weird was that she called Naruto her husband, and he tried to calm Akeno down. Akeno, calm down, let's talk about. And he got a fistful of lightning on his face. The satisfied smirk on Akeno's face was there for everyone to see. She enjoyed hurting people, that much was known, and this time it was giving her an even immense feeling of satisfaction. Akeno, I don't know what has gotten into you, but attacking me was a very big mistake. Well, bestie, why don't you put your fist where your money is and shut your mouth? I have no time to listen to the aimless rambling of a bimbo. Credit to Rias because she responded, firing a ball of dark red energy that carried with the power of destruction. The very presence of that attack was intimidating as it seemed to destroy and instill a sense of hopelessness and desolation at the person receiving the attack. Akeno moved to the side in a display of incredible agility, and the ball of destruction went past her by just a hair's breadth to destroy the table, chairs and chess set she and Issei had been playing on a few moments ago. She ran out of the hole she made with Rias' body a minute ago, drawing close to her opponents. Everyone knew that both Rias and Akeno were magic fighters and they preferred fighting at a distance. The purpose of Akeno running to attack Rias physically seemed stupid, unless she wanted to turn this into a normal girl fight whereas cloths will be torn and hair will be pulled. As such a thought went through Issei's head, he could not help the grin that came on his face as he openly cheered for both of them with blood flowing down his nose. Whether that was from Akeno punching him or something else, no one wanted to know. But Akeno defied all logic as she began to move in inexplicable patterns. Rias was exposed to a barrage of palm strikes coated in lightning as Akeno danced around her like a cat playing chase with a dog. Rias gave a scream of frustration as she released her power in a circumference, pushing Akeno back. The lightning priestess dug her shoes to the ground as she skidded back, making a track on the forest floor. Rias did not stop there as she continued to lob her explosive balls of destruction at Akeno, who also kept dodging them with relative ease. Rias let out an exasperated scream of frustration as everything she threw at Akeno did not touch her, though she succeeded at being able to keep Akeno away from her immediate area, or else this would have been a whole other different story. Akeno slammed her hands on the ground as a dense wave of electricity left her body and slammed into Rias, throwing the Crimson Head Princess into the air and repeatedly slamming her into trees as she pulverized them from inertia in her superior body. Akeno was not done as she took to the skies and raised her hands up. Her eyes lost their luster as they became completely blue and let out minute sparks of electricity. Thunderclouds could be seen gathering in the skies, lightning dance among them like dragons playing just after their birth. Akeno's long black hair turned into a shade of midnight blue as veins began to make an appearance beside her eyes. Issei had seen Akeno fight before, but she had not displayed this kind of power. He could feel a sweat break out from his brows as it trailed down his face in tandem with his nervous breathing. Akeno was really angry, and as such this had gone beyond the reality of a sibling argument or a fight between best friends. Akeno was really trying to kill Rias. The winds picked up. As a massive magic seal appeared above Akeno, all of the lightning around the clouds began to consolidate into one form. If that thing hit, Issei was sure it would not just destroy the academy, but the whole of Kuo. Akeno, stop. Are you going to kill Rias? She is your best friend. You grew up together. I doubt you want to throw that away for whatever relationship you have with Naruto. In retrospect, Akeno had said that Issei's mouth will get them in a lot of trouble one day, as the boy lacked tact. It seemed all his reasoning with Akeno did was make her more angrier as the lightning surged in intensity. Rias had her pride, and as much as she wanted to smack Akeno around for attacking her, there was a lot at stake. People could die. A lot of people, and knowing Akeno, she would live and carry that goodle around like a stigma for the rest of her life. In the light of that, she needed to take the high road. The best she could do was apologize, but before she could open her mouth, a teleportation seal with the crest of the original Lucifer family appeared in front of her as her heart stilled in fright.
Were the old malfaction attacking? In such a crucial time, she gathered her energy, preparing to converge it into a seal tattooed at the end of her waist, just above her lustrous behind, but the person that came out of the teleportation seal was completely against her expectation.
Miss Kushina. The mentioned person just gave Rias a passing look as she moved her attention back to Akeno. If Rias was honest with herself, that action of hers brought down her self-esteem, but still, Naruto's mother was a devil. This was totally unexpected and was a plot twist of epic proportions, which meant Naruto was more than just an ordinary human, not to mention he was a descendant of the original Lucifer. If there was another civil war, countless devils who supported the old Mao will flock behind him in droves and support him as their leader. Rias shuddered. She had been sheltering someone who could cause a lot of trouble for her brother and the other Mao if he was motivated enough to go after power. And as far as devils were concerned, getting rejected by a woman was enough reasons to go to war. She had seen a noble family in the underworld destroyed to oblivion just because the heir had refused the friendship of another noble family's son. The boy flew into a rage and ordered the family destroyed, and it mattered a lot considering the boy was only 16 at the time, the same age as Naruto and Issei. Akeno, that's enough. You are drawing too much attention and it's not good for business. You. What right do you have to tell me to stop? She insulted your son, called him ordinary and insignificant. Rias was a little relieved Akeno had shifted her ire to someone else, but when she tried to put her in the limelight as someone who insulted the son of a potentially powerful enemy, Rias did not find it funny. As Kushina turned to look at Rias with her perfectly streamlined eyebrow raised in amusement, Rias could do nothing but put her head down in embarrassment as she murmured how she didn't mean what she said. Akeno, why are you angry at insults that you know is baseless and have no iota of truth in it? You know she was just speaking out of ignorance. I don't think Naruto will like this kind of attitude from you. You do know he likes the girl, don't you? How can you say that? After everything that happened, not to mention how dare you? You shoved a knife in my husband's chest. I don't care if you are his mother or not. No one does that to him. Now tell me where he is before I turn you to ash. Rias was sure Akeno had gone insane. She had no idea what was going on. Akeno had called Naruto her husband multiple times in the past 10 minutes, and Rias was sure as hell that Akeno had never been far away from her long enough to get married. Don't worry, daughter-in-law, he is safe and sound. The mockery in Kushina's tone was as bright as day. It seemed she found the whole thing funny, in the fact that Akeno kept calling Naruto her husband childish. Don't play games with me, mother, just take me to him, now. Hinata, enough. It was obvious Kushina could yell louder and more ferociously than Akeno, but why call her Hinata? Now come down and let's talk. It was shocking that Akeno, who only a moment ago was prepared to destroy the whole of Kuo just because Rias insulted Naruto, albeit by mistake, since she did not structure her word well, but the sudden change of character when her name was called or a different name was like a scene straight from an anime. Was she also a tsundere along with being a masochist and sadists? What kind of combination was that? Akeno floated down from the sky. As the thunderclouds that were heavily packed and gathered a few moments ago dispersed, she fell into Kushina's arms as she buried her face in the woman's embrace and cried her eyes out. I was so worried. There was blood everywhere and I knew it was his. Even though you told me to stay away, I couldn't. The thought that he was in danger or hurt drove me crazy and I felt like I lost all reasons to live. Then I used a wraith and found out what happened, and I was so angry with you. I was so angry at everything. The man I loved was right in front of me, but I had to let him go just so he would live a normal and happy life that was not as bad as our previous. And he had you, so I was happy for him, and then he came to the school and joined the ORC. I thought this was another chance for us, but he fell in love with Rias instead and it became the whole Sakura situation all over again, but I endured. I wanted him to be happy. If he was in love with a devil I knew there was a chance that he would be turned and then maybe take a second wife or concubine, and then I can be with my husband, but then all this happened. Please tell me, is he okay? No one expected that amount of rant from Akeno, not to mention she was crying and stuttering all through it that it was almost impossible for any of them to make sense of what she was saying, but even then Kushina still held her and ran her hands through Akeno's hair like a mother who was comforting her daughter. Don't worry Akeno, he is fine, and his memories are returning too. With tears in her eyes she looked up and asked, really? Of course, I wouldn't lie to you about this, soon enough you will have your husband back, both the new and old, but you need to be prepared, there's a storm coming, that's why I'm here for you today, you need to continue your training and in a month's time or so, you will see him again. Akeno said nothing but buried her face in Kushina's shoulder sighing in contentment. It was Kaneko with her monotone and emotionless voice who broke the silence. What the fuck just happened? Absolutely no one had the answer to that question. Flying was awesome. Naruto loved every minute of it. As the wind streamed past his face Naruto could not help but give out a laugh of appreciation. It was a wonderful feeling, one that he had every intention of savoring as he flew past the numerous trees in the forest. An obstacle course was not really required for his angelic training, but with his mother not being around to boss anybody around, Gabriel had decided to make Naruto's training a little fun. Of course, how fun can it get when you are racing against clones of yourself that will not hesitate to use cheap tricks to keep you from winning? It was dangerous, but still stupidly fun. His abilities with light had grown enormously. In fact, Gabriel was worried he had grown a little too fast. Without a stable foundation and future achievements with his abilities will be shaky and not powerful enough. But that was Naruto being Naruto. He would never be able to grasp the full abilities of an angel due to only being half, or a quarter. But with how far he had come with his training given enough time, his abilities will rival even his father or his ancestor, the very first angel Lucifer. Naruto could now make hundreds of clones. Of course, after the 300th clone or so any other one becomes progressively weaker, and even the stronger ones are just barely stronger than an awakened human with a sacred gear or any other ability. With time of course Naruto will get stronger, and as he does so will his abilities. When that time comes he would be able to make clones that will rival the strength of a Mao. A ball of light came streaming straight at Naruto as he rounded the corner of a huge oak tree. He dived so low that his nose was almost in contact with the forest floor. His 3-meter wingspan, white with an almost invisible tinge of gold, bifurcated the trees on either side of him as he sliced through them and sent them tumbling to the ground. His efforts crushed his pursuing clones, while he smashed and diced the ones in front of him. Naruto flapped his wings and picked up speed, bringing himself up to the very top of the trees, gliding as close as possible to it so that he could jump down into its branches at a moment's notice. Of course he could go higher, but the sizzling barrier his mother kept suspended over the whole mountain acted as a deterrence for him. He could not help but scowl. He really felt like a prisoner here. Of course she was all about it being for his protection, but if he had learned anything about his mother it was that she was not a trustworthy person. She was steeped and covered in secrets. Her secrets had secrets. Naruto banked away from a clone that came up from his left in an attempt to ambush him. He went right where 7 other clones were waiting for him with floating balls of light. If he moved hack into position he would be exposing himself to diversion on the left, who he might add had 4 other clones joining him, or the ambush that was never sprung on the right. Moving straight ahead will put them on his tail, and that itself was a recipe for disaster. Naruto gathered power at the base of his wings and shot to the 5 clones coming from his left. When he was at least 5 meters away from them he folded his wings to his body and spun as hard as he could. He was able to hear one of the clones mutter a curse before he slammed right through their middle like a bullet. Only difference was that just before he hit, he unfurled his wings extending them into their full length before slashing it at the heads of all 5 clones. They burst into specks of light as Naruto dropped down back into the trees and its shadows. At this point in time his final obstacle before the finish line was standing before him. Looking every bit the archangel that she was, with her golden wings and armor, she looked the warrior goddess from every Otaku's wet dream. She flapped her wings and shot towards Naruto with a speed he would only describe as insane. Naruto knew blocking that hit will probably shatter every bone in his body and end this little game of theirs. He was coming in at his top speed. While not as fast as Gabriel, it was still fast enough to turn him into patty should he crash against anything solid that could withstand his superior body. Naruto dismissed his wings. The suddenly executed move drove Naruto straight into the ground as his uncontrolled speed sent him crashing and tumbling without his wings to stabilize him. He rolled just under Gabriel as she went past with full force, but Gabriel was someone with immeasurable experience in battle and could predict an opponent's move before they could make it and act accordingly. She abruptly turned, The force from the move generated enough power and wind to strip every tree of its leaves and a few branches in a 20-meter radius. Naruto cursed, but decided to continue on foot. His emotions were frayed and everywhere. He couldn't concentrate enough to weave lights, but he could still cast. Naruto took out different sized rocks he had stored in a messenger bag he had with. Soon as his hands touches the rocks, an imperceptible blue light will shine and a rune will be etched on them. Running as he was, it looked comical since it seemed like Naruto was rapidly throwing rocks out of his bag to find something that would aid him in his fight. Gabriel cocked her head to the side in confusion as she could not tell what it was her nephew was doing. He couldn't be that desperate and out of ideas to think that rocks will have any effects on her, because that would be stupid. Gabriel slowed her flying speed as she tried being cautious. Naruto was crafty, sneaky and unpredictable. Even with all her teachings, the boy had no idea what the word honorable means, at least when it comes to a battle. The boy will employ all manner of tricks and machinations, just so that he could win. Of course he wouldn't go too far, but when fighting Naruto it was good to expect underhanded tricks. Once when she was sparring with the boy, he had grabbed her breast and squeezed for all he was worth. Fearsome commander that she was. Gabriel screamed like a teenager and slapped Naruto into unconsciousness and with a nasty head wound. When he woke up a day later with a splitting headache, he also discovered he lost all the teeth on the left side of his face. Safe to say, Naruto never grabbed her breast again. And hopefully not use such tactics when fighting another woman. When his mother was told what happened later that evening, she started crying, saying something like a Jiraiya had gotten to her son and corrupted him. Of course after that Naruto had one of those moments where his eyes go blank and he seems to be somewhere else. Gabriel had told Kushina it might be a sickness or after effect of the mixing genes in his body, but the scary woman had told her not to worry. After he got that look in his eyes, Naruto started crying again, and this time no amount of singing or rocking was helping. Seriously, he was 16 and he acted like he was 3. Naruto cried himself to sleep that night, and right in his mother's arms, but that was neither here nor there considering none of that was going to help her in this fight with Naruto. Once Gabriel got to the spot of the first rock, she realized something was very wrong. The rocks had flashing runes on them, so tiny that only a superior being will be able to notice them, and she did. Those runes were so small only a rune master with an eye for extreme detail will be able to inscribe it, not to mention she was not sure anyone could inscribe such a rune with such speed as Naruto. Runes are meticulously made and inscribed. Any mistake can cause untoward damage to the surrounding and the inscriber himself, and to make it so tiny, Gabriel had to rethink her stand. Naruto was not a hard worker, he was a freaking genius, and freak of nature and a monster. But she discovered this too late as the runes lit up and the explosion started. When Naruto heard the first boom, he picked up speed as he sprinted for the finish line. He was still inscribing runes on rocks and throwing them behind him. Gabriel was an archangel, but with the domino effect of so many explosion runes going off, he would be able to keep her off his back for a while even at the cost of himself. He was close, so close. Just as he was about to cross the finishing line, the butt of a spear slammed into his chest and sent him flying back. Naruto was sure he had a few cracked ribs if they were not already completely broken from the impact. He rolled on the floor like a soccer ball kicked in full force. He felt both his arms and left leg dislocate or break. He couldn't be sure which as he came to rest right where he dropped the last rune inscribed rock. The blue glow from the inscribed rock seemed to mock him as it let out a pulsing glow like a timer, and then it stopped. Oh fuck me. And it did just that. Of course not in the literal sense since that will be impossible. The explosion drove Naruto tumbling through the air, past and also through a few trees, before he came to rest an inch away from the finish line, just an inch. Well nephew, I dare say that was a good and enjoyable bout. We should do it again sometime. Your strategies are exquisite and extraordinary. You will make a great general someday just like your beautiful aunt and your father, did you know we? And she went on rambling, and telling stories, while Naruto with virtually every bone broken in his body was forced to stare at a finish line an inch away from him as his airhead of an aunt regaled him about stories from hers and his father's glory days. Worse still, she was talking to herself. Literally. Naruto sighed as he looked ahead, beating by his own technique. It was not too late for him to lament and regret as he muttered. I should never have taught her the cloning technique, mummy save me. So you're leaving. Aunt Gabriel ha hh, unfortunately that's true little one. Even though we're family, I'm still a general of heaven. I have lots of duties to attend to, you know, Yua. It's so hard being so high profile. I don't even have enough time to spend with my cute nephew. Oh, the injustice of leadership and responsibility. You know there's absolutely no need to blow everything out of proportion. I'm sure we will see each other again. Who is blowing things out of proportion? EHHH Naruto would have probably been better off keeping his mouth shut and letting Gabriel run hers. It would have saved him a lot of pain, but it seemed time had come to a close on this chapter of his training. but in the past few weeks with Gabriel he had developed the bragging rights many teenagers his age would love to have. 1. He had the cool aunt. 2. She was a freaking archangel. 3. She was a whole walking can of boobacious, if such a word existed, and ultimately she was his friend, one of his precious people. I wished we had more time, little one, but duty calls, and so Inhave decided to give you one last lesson. It might help you, and it might not. To cultivate its power, you will need unnecessary amount of luck, so are you ready? Yes, good. First, an explanation of what you are about to learn. It has many names, and more often than not it was all given by humans. This ability is native to humans as a species, but it's incredibly rare. Only 100 in 10,000 can have it. In that 100 only 10 can train this ability to a level of great power. Other races have tried to replicate this ability, but with limited results and countless failures. Only a few non-human races managed to develop a smidge of it, much less cultivate it to the level of the top 10. That is until your father. He developed a way to use it, and it was all through methods implemented by humans themselves. He taught me, but I have not been able to fully learn it. But maybe you will, it's your destiny. Naruto could hardly fathom what sort of ability this might be. The way Gabriel spoke of it, with such reverence and respect, made him apprehensive. Usually when something is this great, more often than not it is extremely dangerous. This peculiar ability of humans has been mysterious enough to have many names coined to its origin. In the millennia the human species has been alive. Recent pop culture has taken to calling this ability telekinesis, but that is the most basic and benign form of this power. I think the proper name should be mental energy, or the more fanciful one FEM, all those sci-fi movies, psi. It's the ability to facilitate a change of your physical environment based solely on the power of your mind. The cultivation of this ability is based solely on the power of your mind, on your force of will, the very core of a human's ability, to want, to take, to protect and to survive. Not many people ever successfully train this power to a level that can cause damage to members of the supernatural community. But those that do are a dime a dozen, and so fearsome that they could turn the entire tide of a battle in their favor. Someone with control over their mental energy can to a certain extent move things with their mind, cause illusions and hallucinations just by making eye contact. They can also display full and sometimes partial control over the elements of nature. This kind of psionics have a special name added to them. They call them benders, or you can call them pyromancers, hydromancers, geomancers, etc. But each of them have a common denominator. Because of the intense power of their mind, they cannot be mind controlled without great risks to themselves and the person attempting the control. They also have a natural resistance to magic of any form. Your father had devised a way to cultivate mental energy. While it has not been that effective for us angels, maybe it will be different for you, since you are half human and all. First you must develop your mindscape. A mindscape is a visual representation of a person's state of mind. Every living being has it, but not many can discover it and wield it. Your mindscape is also Tuesday very root of your soul. What? Naruto was confused, but for some reason the very topic of a soul rubs off on him the wrong way. He was apprehensive about it, and rightly so. For every supernatural creature their soul is the ultimate base of their power, their very being. Naruto knew that much, and tampering with a person's soul might have some very adverse effects. Don't worry. There's not much danger involved. As I was saying, the roots of a soul is nestled firmly in your mindscape, and these roots are made up of your memories, your emotions, dreams, ambitions and your willpower. It is virtually what makes you. To cultivate mental energy, even just a smidge, and activate your mindscape, you have to circulate and draw every piece of energy in a constant circulation through and within your head. You must combine all your energy into one focal point. The center of your forehead is that point, but to fully activate it, you must commit. You must be prepared to meet your demons and confront your true self. Unlike all your other trainings, you will have to disconnect yourself from nature and her energy sources. You must make yourself a universe where only you can control your mindscape. You will be a god of your own dimension, of your own mind. Well, that's all I can teach you, young one. I have to go now, duty calls. And her piece said. Naruto watched as Gabriel flew away, and on she went, until she was nothing more than an indistinct spot on the yellow setting sun. He knew he was going to miss her. She was family after all, but did she have to leave so fast? Naruto sat down on the Groyuembi right in front of the cabin. He faces the light of the setting sun as he closed his eyes, enjoying the serenity of a day well spent. The energy within him moved in tandem with his breathing. It was like a living thing with a pulse of its own, and just like the waves in the sea, it flowed and ebbed like the tide of a spring's monsoon. He felt at peace, connected to everything around him as nature ran its course, playing to its very own tune as it implemented the circle of life. Then Naruto stopped. His entire body, soul and mind felt silent. The of nature he had always felt the unending source of power was missing. Instead, what he could feel was the growing ball of force and power inside of him. This ball had a sense of singularity, yet it was a combination of different things. It was like a hub, or a meeting point of all the energy and power in his body. And it twirled and crashed like whirlpool, sucking and taking everything in its path as a force of nature, bred for wanton destruction. Naruto took a deep breath as he guided the energy to his head. At first there was a moment of indescribable pain. Taking control of his whole energy seems to be something impossible he couldn't do now. After a few moments of gasping and trying to catch his breath, Naruto tried again. This time he guided a sliver of that energy, only a tiny bit. Although it still gave him pain, it was not as intense as when he first tried to Movento entire ball of energy. It was a slow process due to the growing pain he felt, but eventually the energy got to his head. Pain began to build up like a crescendo and staccato of unrelenting drum beats, matching and thrumming to the sound and rhythm of his pulse. His head felt like it was being split by a hammer, and as the pain continued, Naruto wanted to stop, to abandon this foolish endeavor of a training, but he couldn't. He had lost total control of his energy as it began to focus and gather at a point right on his forehead. And right when Naruto felt like he couldn't take the pain anymore, teetering between the edge of being driven insane by the pain or succumbing to the sweet release of unconsciousness, a veritable boom was heard. The energy in Naruto's head spread out and left his head, coming out in a wave of pure mental energy that obliterated every single thing in their path. The release of the mental energy uprooted and destroyed every tree in its path. A huge crater was dug right in front of Naruto, almost 20 meters deep and 20 meters long. Unlike the time when he sucked the very life out the trees in the forest, this time it was complete obliteration. It was like someone dropped a pint-sized tactical warhead in the area. After Naruto bared witness to the destruction he had caused, he couldn't help but mutter, "My mom is so going to kill me," but his mind had other plans as he felt a sensation of falling, coupled with the intense feeling of being squeezed by gravity, and then everything went black. When he came to, Naruto discovered he was lying down on a cobbled ground. He got up, dusting himself for specks of dust he didn't notice was not there. He looked around and almost screamed. He was in a place that he recognized from his many memories. This was Konoha. It looked exactly like it was the last time he saw it, beautiful and flourishing. But it was empty. The stalls, stores and buildings were devoid of life. There was nothing, no wind, no bugs and no plants. There was just the buildings around him. It did not take him too long to acknowledge that this was his mindscape, a virtual representation of his state of mind. Naruto busied himself exploring. Of course, the sheer size of the place meant he would spend hours doing it. Eventually he arrived in front of a cozy two-story house. Naruto had seen flashes of this place the first time he got his memories back, but he was not able to read meanings into it. His legs had subconsciously dragged him here, but he couldn't be sure why. He went into the house, and the pure wave of emotion that smothered him was so intense he was struck with the urge to laugh and cry at the same time. But underneath all that he had one feeling, and that he was home. He couldn't not help himself but say out loud, "I am home." He did not expect any answers, so when a boy of about 10, and a girl no older than 3 or 4 ran round the corner to greet him, he was shocked. They went past him and ran into his arms, or you could say the arms of the man behind him. Naruto had to admit he looked ugly with short hair. What happened to his luscious golden locks of hair? The scene brought tears to his eyes. 16 years old he might be in this new life, but no matter where he goes he would never forget his children, which made it all the more worse that he did. It was not his fault, which was why he couldn't help the hot feeling of resentment for his mother as he smothered in rage. He might have been a baby, but she had no right to deny him his memories of his children. Living a normal life be damned. As woman came down the stairs from the 2nd floor, Hinata was just as beautiful as the first time he saw her. When he got his memories back, her face was among the first he saw. He had no idea what she really meant to him back then, but now he did. She was his wife, his own personal ball of sunshine and happiness. As she swept past him, to go hug the memory of his older self, Naruto could not help but to touch her as she went past him. As he did, the whole mindscape shook, almost as if an earthquake was about to happen. And mere moments later, where Hinata was standing, Akeno took her place. They stared at each other in surprise, neither saying anything. Akeno gave a wistful smile as she wanted to say something, but the moment her eyes fell on the 2 children and his older self, her words were stuck in her throat. She walked towards them with her back to Naruto, her shoulders shaking as she cried silently. Naruto was even more confused as he wondered how Akeno was able to come into his mindscape. He had total control, at least Gabriel said he did, so he was able to feel that this was Akeno, or at least her mind. But one question remains, and he had to ask. "Akeno, do you know them?" With her tear-choked voice and tear-streamed face she turned to him and answered, "How could I not? Not even rebirth will stop me from recognizing my husband and children." Wait. But that means, Naruto found himself eerily unable to complete the sentence. He knew what he meant, and quite honestly he was an idiot. She was right in front of him the whole time. Of course Hen had no memories, not to mention she was a whole other different person on this world. But in the end it did not change it one bit. She was his wife, his Hinata, and now she would be his Akeno. He could not imagine the pain she had to go through watching him fawn over Rias like that. Honestly he felt so embarrassed. Sorry, what for, Naruto? For everything. I am your husband, it's my job to look after you, but I did not remember, and of the time we spent together I used it to chase another girl. It's like Sakura all over again. It seems like I am destined to be the doby and idiot for all eternity. Seriously. What? I get that you want to protect me, Naruto, but I would not have punishing yourself for what was out of your control. I already found you long before you came to Kuo. Your mother asked me to let you live a normal life, to let you live free from your memories of the elemental nations. We made that choice for you. It was wrong of us and selfish. We did not even consider that Vlevin, though you reincarnated, without your memories, you were not you. Just somebody else, and for that I am sorry. I sold have fought your mother harder for a chance and for us to be together again. But I was blinded by my pity and love for you. I felt you needed a chance to grow up with your mother, to be happy and have a chance at a normal life, but it was selfish. This was what I wanted for you, not what you wanted for yourself. Please forgive me. Naruto had absolutely no idea what to think. Was he angry? Yes, of course, but he somewhat understood. They took a lot from him. But they gave him something in return. But no amount of time spent with his mother could erase or overwhelm the memories for his children and his wife. When he found out the truth of his birth and his parents' deaths back on the elemental nations, he made his peace. He moved on. His mother could not move on. Regardless of the 16 years of love she gave to him, he could not easily let the fact that of that same amount of time somebody deny him the memories of his children. He was going to have a very serious talk with his mother with huge relationship-altering clause. Where they find themselves after that talk was left entirely up to fate. As for Akeno, she was his wife and soulmate, even in this world. It was the reason why she could just pop into his mindscape like she was going to her bathroom. Their souls were bound together by that creepy dude on the moon. Says it was an ancient ritual to make couples closer to each other. It worked for the most part, until Hinata started hitting him with a frying pan any time he looked at a passing female with any hint of attraction. Married or not, he was still a man. He pulled Akeno into his arms as he held her, which was a funny thing to do considering she was about a head taller than him. He did not like that at all, not one bit. They left their old home, leaving the shadows of their memories behind, stuck in another time and another world. After that, they went round the village, reminiscing and recalling old memories. They spoke of their time as genins, their marriage and the antics of their children. It did not for once occur to Naruto that he had regains the whole of his memories, but who cares, he was rekindling the love he had for his wife, and maybe find a way to consider telling her that he wanted more kids. Michael had always had an appreciation for the night. It had a sense of beauty and melancholy. It was the perfect time to think, to love, to kill. The night with all its beauty still remained what it was at its core, unchanging in the generations and millenniums of lives it had nursed. The night bred darkness, it bred hate, crime and pain. Seeing beauty in it was just a novelty, but for now it was something he could afford to do. New York City was a city that accepted the night. They may not have tamed its wild darkness to the level of Paris, but it was still bright, sickeningly so, and as he watched them going about their daily lives, the charges his father had left to him, his humans, he felt the literal weight of the world on his shoulders. Maybe he should pay a visit to Atlas. The guy was a hard worker. He sighed again. So many movies and stories had always portrayed the Empire State Building as a place where their heroes or villains will stand and watch over their city, all in a bid to destroy them or protect them. Michael was not so sure what his reason were for being up here. It was his job to protect them, his sacred duty bestowed upon him by his father. It was what he knew how to do best. In both his lives all he had ever done was protect. He did not know anything else. Neither was he willing to learn any. This was the source of his strength, the will and power to protect those he loved, and he loved the humans. How could he not? They were complex, different, and regardless of their mortality, they are the most perfect example of a god. Maybe not to his father's level, but still gods in their own right. The one thing they shared with divinity, most especially their creator, was the power to love, and the ability to create, and the one thing they have, that puts them above every other creature, supernatural or natural, god or demon, was their ability to evolve. The capacity for change and growth was terrifying. It had now put them at odds with the entire supernatural community. But what did he expect? For so many years they had been caught in the middle of this war. A war the angels to part in to protect them. But war was war, and in the years that passed as it grew in its intensity, the angels lost sight of what they were fighting for, especially when their father went missing. The indistinct flapping of wings drew him out of his musings. Gabriel landed on the roof looking every bit the archangel that she was, the very leader of heaven's messengers. You still refuse to grasp the importance of stealth, Gabriel. It surprises me how you remain the leader of the messengers. You make more noise than Raphael when he's hungry. I am handling myself just fine, brother. I just don't see a reason why I have to sneak around just to talk to you, and enough with all this reprimand about stealth. I am not a ninja. That is true. Your very presence in any of their villages will shame them. And what is that supposed to mean? Well, with your extravagant golden armor, glowing spear and sparkling wings, you have no idea what low-key means. Well, that is because I prefer to have my enemies see me coming. I want them to look me in the eye as I choke the life out of them. I want them to acknowledge their wrongs and respect me as shove my spear into their heart. It's the honorable thing to do. Forgive my language, dear Sister, but you are sick and creepy. It makes me wonder why you have not fallen yet. You are walking on thin lines, Michael. I could just as easily shove you off this roof so that you can have a peculiar taste of pavement dirt. How sick does that sound to you? Forgive me, sister. I should not have been so loose with my words. Sometimes I wonder if we both have the wrong jobs. You are more suited to this warmongering thing than I am. I wonder if Father made a mistake when he appointed me General of the Host of Heavens, titled me Michael the Archangel of War, made it so that any time I am called out, there will be rivers of blood and a pungent odor of death and destruction for generations. Brother, war is more than just killing. Even I am not proud to admit it, but we all lost our way, except for you. You kept on fighting for what you believed in, for the salvation of the human race and its protection from forces that will seek to harm them. War is not always about killing, brother. It's about knowing what to fight for and making sure it's for the right reasons. You cannot give up now. I know you are tired, but at this point in time, this close to peace, we need you to be nothing less than nothing less than the god of war that you are. You need to remember, while our fallen brothers and sisters battled for something as stupid and mundane as territories, we fought to protect the innocent race that was caught in between this war, and not just the humans. We fought for peace, brother. You fought for hope, for a chance to make a world where every race can be happy and free from discrimination and wanton destruction due to clashing ideals, and now more than ever, you need to fight for your son's future. Michael was startled. This was a discussion he had no intentions of having, but it was still the truth. Any form of the 7 sins that an angel partakes in will bring about their fall, but the system made by God had a loophole he made himself before he disappeared. The Bible was more than just a missive or a collection of prophecies from God's very own mouth. It was a guide to a way of life, and more often than not it emphasized the power of love. Till today Michael has no idea how the system truly worked. He could always make some adjustment to it, but ultimately its full function was out of his hands, so he had no idea how the system could recognize true love. But when he met Kushina again, in this new life of his, he gave up everything just to be with her. Of course she was nor really the Kushina from the elemental nations. She had new habits, and there was almost nothing to no intense that the memories of her past life was there. In short, she was a whole other person, but that did not stop him from loving her all the same. This might have been someone different, but Michael loved her all the same. He said goodbye to his past life as Minato, to embrace his life as Michael. Even if he had lived for thousands of years, with Kushina by his side he felt complete, and then 3 years later she disappeared. He did not see her until 5 years later, when he led a raid on the mansion of a fallen angel who had been conducting experiments on humans. He saw her on his bed and quite in the process of having wanton and unrestrained sex with him. Michael was livid. He went on a killing spree that day that made him live up to his name as the Archangel of War. Kushina would have been dead too if she was not so strong. It didn't take long for him to find out that the tip that led to this raid came from her and her organization. It was actually all an elaborate setup to get Michael to divorce her. After all, the Bible condemns a woman who would commit adultery, giving right to the husband to divorce her, and Michael, who had always lived his angelic life bound by the rules of his father, gave her what she wanted. For a while he hated her. If she wanted to be free of their marriage, did she have to be so ruthless about it? She wanted to make sure that Michael did not come after her or harbor any sort of delusions that they could be a happily married couple again. In the 10 or so years that followed, he only spoke to her a total of 5 times. At that point in time he had no reservations when he told himself that this woman was absolutely not Kushina. He had lived for thousands of years, and he was pretty sure he did not change much from when he was Minato. This woman was a whole other different person, and then recently he found out that he had a son who she denied him a chance of ever knowing, until he was 16, almost an adult. Once again he was denied the chance to watch his son grow up, and the second time it was a lot worse, because this betrayal was harder to swallow, not when it came from someone you loved. Gabriel, my son. What's he like? Brother, he's amazing. I see so much of you in him. He's smart, innovative, loyal and funny. Although I think he might be a pervert, he took every chance he got to stare at my breast.
If Michael's eyebrow went any higher it would probably disappear into his blonde hair. His son, a pervert, was Gabriel drunk or something? The amount of angels that had fallen due to her body was in the thousands. How did she expect a teenager to not take the chance to stare at her breast? She was so clueless to the damage she causes with her body.
It was irritating because Michael felt that in the years him and a twin sister had been alive, she had not once realized the effect she had on men. This level of cluelessness was even worse than he was back in the elemental nations. At this level it's just plain stupidity. So what can he do? What does he look like? Did you get a picture? Well, your son created a new way to use light constructs. He made clones. What? Here, let me show you. There's 2 of you. Yep. Wow, that is both amazing and terrifying. I don't think the world can handle 2 of you. It will be the apocalypse. Seriously? Don't look at me like that, Gabriel, you know it's true. Well, tell me more. Well, your son looks like you. He has blonde hair just a little bit shorter than yours. The deepest blue eyes that shows that our side of the family has the dominant gene. He's a little bit shorter than most boys his age, but he has yet to hit his growth spurt strangely enough, and he is so tanned, and his body is so hot. Here, let me show you a picture. Once Minato saw the picture, he felt like he was struck by lightning. That smile, that face, those eyes, how can this be possible? How? He swallowed a lump in his throat as he muttered. That's Naruto. That's my son. Yep, that's him all right. If Gabriel was not such an airhead, she would have known. The Minato did not ask a question, he made a statement, and the fact of the matter is, till this day no one, not even Kushina, had told him the name of his son, which begs the question Gabriel was not even asking. How did he know? It has only been about 3 months since Naruto has been here, but so much had changed it felt like a lifetime. This place had been his home all his life. All the memories he had of a normal life, of normal problems, normal dreams were all centered in this very house. But now he felt like a stranger in his own body. He's a reincarnated ninja from another dimension, pulled through layers up on layers of space and time just to keep his mother company. Maybe it was not as simple as that, but it was hard not putting the blame on his mother. His life had changed. He might have totally recalled his entire memories from his past life, but that does not change the fact that he had another life. He was a different person here. He might have not been as happy as he wanted to, but he was comfortable with his life. Now it was hard to reconcile himself. He felt like 2 people sharing the same body. Characteristics, perks and everyday habits of both his lives were beginning to fight for dominance. His mind in shambles as he tries to make sense of how to behave now that he got his memories back. Or if he should keep on living the way he has for the past 16 years, he was at war with himself, and this was a war I could not see an end to. He felt like he had 2 souls, 2 minds, and Tuesday bridge between this 2 was so thin any wrong movements will shake it down. He needed to make sense of all this, to understand how he was supposed to live now. Can he still be the old him, the father and leader of a ninja village, or the normal 16-year-old son of a single mother? It seemed impossible, but one of the perks of his returning memories was that he now had an unwavering determination, and a just so stubborn never say never attitude. He would have to try his best to make the best of his life. It was safe to say that there was no Hokage or student Naruto anymore. Now he was just somebody else, and who he was, well, that's a question and journey he would have to take on his own. Besides, people say that life is an adventure. Naruto dragged himself out of his thoughts as he moved around his house. As much as he missed this place, he did not want to stay here. Honestly, when he looked at its walls, all he could see are the lies his mother had built around him. Naruto could understand how desperate his mother could have been, how unstable her mental health was, when she suddenly opened her eyes as a baby and realized she died protecting her son who was not even an hour old. She lost everything she knew, and most of all her chance to be a mother. It drove her crazy, prompted her to make decisions that would have untold consequences in the future. And now many people were paying for it. What's on your mind, Naruto? At the sound of her voice, he felt a shudder go down his spine. His heart sped up, hammering inside of him like the piston off a sports car, and when she hugged him from behind, her jaw resting on his shoulders as he took in the scent of lavender and tea. She still smelled as she did in their past life. The only thing new was the smell of tea and the fact that his wife was now a masochist of the highest order. Her being here was also his fault. One of his earlier experiments with sealing techniques and trying to understand the dead reanimation technique had led him to a profound understanding of the soul. In a moment of hopeless puppy love, he had bound his and Hinata's soul together for all of eternity. If she died, so did he. And if he died, she would also follow. But it was hard, much like his fight with himself. One side of him loved her. He loved so much it hurt. Even though she was different now, but the other side was still pining for a redhead who did not have feelings for him. It seems both Narutos had a tendency for wanting what they can't have. It's hard being two people Akeno, it's hard that one part of me has to love you so much while the other still pines for Rias, I feel terrible. Naruto could feel her breathing hitched as he mentioned Rias. It was not fair to her at all, that after all her waiting and holding on for the man she loved, in the end some part foe him loved someone else. This was something he did not know how to make right at all. Naruto, I understand how you feel, and in that regard let me tell you a story. You see, when your mother performed her spell, dragging your soul into her unborn baby, she also dragged mine along, but she did not know we were connected, neither did she know that the soul she summoned had an extra, without a body. I was forced to roam the earth, alone and desperate for a chance to be with you, or at least have a body. Over a period of a few years, my soul began to dissipate, my memories were intact, but pieces of me, things that made me who I am, was lost to the world, never to be regained. Then one day, I found a girl of about 8 years old. She was dying from a particularly nasty curse that slowly eroded her soul. As a soul I perched, hoping to keep her company until she passed, even if she couldn't see me. And then Rias came along, all red-cheeked and awkwardly cute. She was so innocent then too. Rias tried to reincarnate the girl into a devil, but the ceremony had unforeseen complications. My soul was drawn into the mix, and with both souls injured and missing vital parts of each other, we latched and melded until there was no Hinata, and no Akeno, only me, and regardless of what happens I love you, Naruto. It transcends what normal people can ever hope to feel. To the very depths of my bones, to the darkest path of my soul, I love you, and no matter how confused you are, or if you love someone else, I will always stay by your side as long as there's a place for me in your heart, then that's enough for me. Naruto was shocked to say the least. He had no idea she had gone through all this. She faced exactly what he was now facing. She did not tell him how to deal with it, no, that would be too easy, and he knew her enough to know that things are more than they seem sometimes. In the end everything was going to fall in place as long as he kept on believing. If she could go through all manner of hardships, even in the purest form of a soul just to be with him, then there's nothing on this world he wouldn't do for her. I love you too, Akeno, Hinata, whoever you are now, and I promise that I will always be here for you. Our love story is so crazy, it has taken us through reincarnation and no small amount of mental trauma, but as long as I have you, then there's nothing I could be afraid of, nothing at all. Tokyo City. Miranai Kazuki Stevens was many things in life: a mother, a fighter, a wife, and one of the most important figures in the Council of the Human Faction, but she was not always this powerful. She was born wealthy, to an ancient family that could trace their roots past the time of the General Nobunaga. With such history it was almost unimaginable the amount of power her family possessed. From a young age she had been taught the intricacies of business, of corporate espionage and politics in its most ruthless and self-centered form. All she knew how to do was win, and win she did. By the time she was 25, she was known as one of the most ferocious businesswomen to have ever walked the earth, and she was successful with it. Somehow, in a way even she does not remember today, she found out about the supernatural world. And much like a fool she fell in love with the thirst for power. Her search led her to making a contract with a devil whose name to this day sends uncontrolled waves of fear and terror through her body. His name was Rizavim Lucifer. Thankfully he was not the real Lucifer, but that did not make him any less terrifying. He did everything she asked of him, all the dirty things a woman of her status could not be seen doing. Over time, with his help, she became the most powerful person in Japan. Her power stretched far and wide to the point it began to spill into neighboring countries. Her success had painted a huge target on her back, and at only 27, she had stepped on too many toes on her journey to the top of the mountain, and then she asked him to teach her magic, to give her an edge over her competitors and those who would seek to harm her. Rizavim gave her what she wanted. That was a mistake. She loved the power, she was drunk on it. What she felt could not be compared to the feeling of having money and holding sway to the lives of her thousands of employees. No, this gave her power over the life of anyone she chose, and fortunately for her, she was born from a family who had made contacts with the supernatural world many times over hundreds of years. Apart from magic, she developed a powerful mental ability. For every sense of the word she became telepathic, with the outstanding abilities to read the mind and to a small degree control and implant suggestions in it. Her awakening caught the attention of the council, a group of people from around the world with power that made her look like a child playing with a water gun. She couldn't resist, and when she answered the call she found out about the war. Of how human lives have been lost in thousands and in droves over the years that the supernatural factions had been at war.
She was no saint, but the horror of such knowledge had her joining them. She discovered one of their targets, and right on top of the list was Rizavim, a person who she considered her loyal dog for almost a decade. In order to prove herself to her new friends, she went after him, summoned him right in the middle of her family house and agreed to take control of his mind, if not outright destroy him.
She underestimated him. She had no idea of the scope of his power. How could she, a normal human who was lucky enough to learn a few parlor tricks, compare to An who has lived thousands of years and had knowledge that could upturn the entire human world? She was foolish, and in her foolishness she angered him.
Right in front of her family, he made the watches he took her chastity, something she had prided herself for not losing in all pf her shady business deals, and when he had slaughtered her family, he took her again right on top of their still warm corpses, and then he left her there, doused in blood in his seat. As she experienced true despair, she was given a shock of true power, and reminded her insignificant she was in the eyes of any other supernatural creature. 9 months later she had a daughter whom she named Kushina Lucifer. She could not bear the shame of giving the abomination her family name of Kazuki, but Kushina was peculiar. In a way she was special. She was not like other children. She was smart beyond her years, and as early as 2 this girl showed ferocious capabilities in magic, even more than her mother when she first started.
She took her daughter with her back to the council, drafted her into the thousands of special children being groomed for war, left her in hardships as she used everything strength she had in her disposal to climb to the very top of the council and become its second most powerful person. When Kushina was 10, Miranai remarried. She married an American who was the heir to a fortune that could rival hers, but what was more special about this man was who he was descended from, a family that was highly respected by the council, the Van Helsing clan.
A family of hunters, the very best at what they did, be it devils, fallen angels, and on occasions angels themselves. This family had quite a history of leaving a pile of bodies in their wake, and this man was one of the last true-blooded Helsing in the world. With her marriage to him, she became the most powerful, but instead of taking control she put her husband on the seat, while she played things from the shadows. After all, don't they say behind every successful man is a woman?
After her marriage things settled down. She later had twins, a boy and a girl that she loved with all of her heart, and she taught them everything she knew, made them strong, but no matter how impressed they made her, they could not sway the public opinion, because regardless they had nothing over their 15-year older sister who was so powerful half the instructors could not even touch her. When she was 18 Kushina disappeared, and she had not heard anything about her for the past 20 years, until now. Are you sure of what you were saying? Yes, councilwoman. The 3 factions has sent an invite to the council for talks on peace. There was also a message from the Uzumaki organization, penned by a Kushina Uzumaki who asked that Your Excellency makes it to the meeting. And what else have you found out? Your Excellency, this Kushina woman has been the one running the Uzumaki organization. They are a combination of multiple races, and they deal with information. You yourself aware of their ability as you have been a stable customer of them during some of your past endeavors. They have eyes everywhere, both in the human world and supernatural world, making them quite influential. Also she has a son. What? Are you serious? Yes, Your Excellency. Also rumors has it that her son is far from normal. Our spies have been able to uncover that for a period of 3 years, she was married to the Archangel Michael, and their son is the only living discrucis in 4 to 5,000 years, since the time of King Solomon and the prophet Elijah. How certain are you of this information? About 78%, Your Excellency. Very well. Go deeper until you can confirm it's 100%. Also restructure my schedule and plan a flight to Kuo for me. It seems it's about time I went back home. Also send for my children. Tell them we're having a family reunion. Yes, Your Excellency. By your leave. After he left, Miranai let out a huge breath. She looked out her window as she appreciated the complexity and beauty of Tokyo City. Man had come far, and they did not have any help. There was no angels or fallen angels or those disgusting devils to help them. They achieved greatness solely on the power of their own force of will. It was time to show the supernatural faction who truly owned this world. Humanity have been biding its time for so many years. Now they would show their fangs. There's a new dog in town, and as far as this dog is concerned, there's no room for more. The city of Kuo had a penchant for always starting the night early. Most families would have already been home by 8 or 9. It was ample time for the supernatural to venture out of the shadow. Naruto did not like the sound of that. Maybe it was due to the fact that he now had devil blood in him, and he had to have a little bit of pride. But nonetheless he hated that all supernatural entities have to structure their lifestyle around the light of the moon. But sometimes it was beautiful, just like tonight. Maybe it could be attributed to the fact that he was strolling around town with a beautiful woman. A woman who makes him has a deep appreciation for the night. Somehow only under the light of the moon could Akeno's beauty really shine out. The sounds that accompany the night in its 12 hours journey holds the world under its sway. The crass sounds of crickets and toads as they add their own arcane and asinine melody into the mix of the orchestra that is the night. The cool and calming breeze flutter through and over them. Naruto felt tingly all over. It may be due to the fact that he was just beset by the joy the heart of a teenager could not help but have when he had the woman he loved beside him, or it could be the fact that somehow the night was affecting him in ways he could not understand. He felt a calling deep within his bones, a summoning of unknown origins coursing through his blood, his spirits full of vitality as the night strengthened him, intoxicated him and gave him power never had the chance of wielding since he began his training. That feeling you are having, Naruto, is what it's like for devils to walk the night. It's pretty intoxicating, isn't it? Said Akeno. You have no idea. How do you deal with it? If you keep on feeling like this all the time, won't you go insane of pleasure? And also, how will you focus in a fight? Naruto asked. Well, that is not something you will not have to worry about. What you are feeling right now only happens once to every devil in their lives, unless in some rare cases, pure blood devils feel like this the first night they spend on Earth. Reincarnated devils feel it for a whole week, every night for each of the 7 days after they are reborn as devils, but it would eventually go away, explained Akeno. It would be relegated into a buzz-like feeling just at the back of your mind that more often than not helps you focus and relax, especially at nights. Well, that is both relieving and disappointing, but sadly we cannot have our cake and eat it. That is also true, husband. Come, dance with me, seriously. Here. Now, in an abandoned park, with a hormone-driven teenager, you were asking me to dance with you. I must say I admire your courage, young woman. Oh, don't worry. I expect you to be a perfect gentleman. Why settle for an uncomfortable roll in the hay, when I have a perfectly functioning king-sized bed at my home? Now get those thoughts out of your mind and come dance with me. Naruto shook his head in amusement as he encircled his hands around her waist. It felt so tiny and fragile to his hand that any wrong movement might break her in two. Of course, the only thing comical about this whole situation was the fact that she was about a head taller than him. He could not help but lament his lack of height. He also had the same problem back in the elemental nations. Of course, he still ended up taller than pretty boy Sasuke, but it still sucked when the love of your life is a head taller than you when previously she was so small that your entire body could cover her. But he didn't care. He drew her close so that her beating heart could match his. Under this moonlight, the otherwise simple dance was a declaration of undying love. A promise of sorts to always be together no matter the weather. In a way, you could say they were renewing their wedding vows. It was perfect for him, though. This past few months had been filled with all manner of ups and downs, of decisions and convictions to be made and reinforced. All the while he was being covered and smothered by the secrets of his mother. He was stressed. But here and now with Akeno, everything else seemed so superficial. And just like a drug, he felt his worries float away. The scent of Akeno only seemed to enhance her beauty as he took a deep breath. He felt his heart skip a beat. It jumped in giddiness and joy. Not many people could understand what it felt like to really hold someone you loved and who also loved you back, in your arms. The feeling is indescribable. It was so powerful that you felt safe, you felt comforted, and that nothing in the world can touch you. There would be no random bouts of loneliness, because you know that if you turn around, she would be right there to hold onto you, and have your back in the darkest of times. Well, isn't this a happy reunion? Somehow I feel left out, a familiar voice calls out. You know, Kiba, if I was not so happy right now, I would be inclined to kick your ass 2 ways to Sunday. Don't flatter yourself, Naruto. You might be a whole lot different now, but I doubt you can take me in a fight, said Kiba. Ooh, you want to bet on that, Prince Charming? If I win I get to drive that Mustang you have hidden in that warehouse for a week. There's no way in hell I am letting you touch my baby. Nope, nada, zilch, zero, shouted Kiba. If you boys want, you can both fight me instead. You have no idea how much I want to shut you both up right now. And Kiba, how could you hide such a big secret from your big sister Akeno? Are you afraid I will have to punish you? But first of all, hand over the keys and the location of this Mustang Naruto was talking about. Though for your sake I hope it's a classic, said Akeno sweetly. Naruto and Kiba felt a shiver go through their spines as they were treated to the sight of an extremely terrifying Akeno looking at them. Of course, at the moment she was nothing more than a big bully, but none of them had the guts to call her out for it. At the moment they both felt a sense of loss, Kiba for his car, and Naruto his freedom and pride as a man. 16 he might be, but he knew as far as this life was concerned, Akeno was going to be by his side till it ends for him. It was a scary thought. By the way, Kiba, what brings you here? No one is supposed to know that Naruto was back, asked Akeno. I did not know he was back. I am just here because Rias was asking for you. There's a sleeper cell of stray devils here in Kuo. We noticed their abilities about a week ago. Orders have come from up high. I mean down below to eliminate the cell, explained Kiba. That is a little harsh. Usually we would capture them and send them back to the underworld for punishment. So what changed? Questioned Akeno. I can't be too sure, Akeno, but based on what I heard. Due to the faction meeting that is happening exactly 4 days from now. Preparations are being made to ensure it goes smoothly, But there is also going to be a high-profile target whose safety is paramount above everything else. Our team of devils has been relegated as this bastard's bodyguards. As such, it's up to us to make sure that everything goes well, and that our charge, whoever he is or she is, will be protected and comfortable for the duration of his or her stay here in Kuo. But that aside, suit up, we're going hunting, said Kiba. Akeno turned to Naruto with an apologetic look on her face. Sorry, love, but it seems duty calls. Nothing to be sorry for, Akeno, cause I'm coming with you. What? Don't worry, Kiba, I won't get in your way, and last I remember, I am still a member of the O.R.C. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, let's go. The teleporting seal dropped them off in front of a clan building. It had all the makings of the home of an ancient Japanese clan house. The traditional way it was built instilled a sense of nostalgia in Naruto, but it was surprising how such a building was still standing. Much of Kuo itself was more modern than any other city in Japan, so it came as a surprise to Naruto that such a building was still standing after so many years. The lights were turned off, since devils, as a race, had no need for illumination at night. They had really good eyesight. Naruto dulled his other senses as he focused his hearing. He could hear the whispers of the house's occupants, however he could not make out their conversations completely, but at least he knew they were there. An unknown voice calls out behind him, "Ah, Naruto-san. It's good to see you, welcome back." At the sound of her voice, Naruto turned to see Asia standing behind him, looking like the innocent nun she was before she became a devil due to unfortunate circumstances. He chose to ignore the bat-like wings on her back as he focused on the cute-looking girl. "Thank you, Asia, it's good to be back," said Naruto. "I prayed for you every day, and the good father answered my prayers and brought you back safe and sound," said Asia. Naruto raised an eyebrow. He did not think the relationship he had with Asia was that good, considering she spent most of her time competing with Rias for that pervert's attention. "I cannot imagine how painful such an act would have been for you. I heard that devils that pray to my grandfather always end up in severe pain, but thank you so much for making an effort, Asia, you're a good person." "God please forgive, ouch!" cried another unknown voice. The person who attempted to speak was a blue-haired girl who he had never met before, but based on her scream he had the basic idea of what she wanted to ask. Naruto saw no reasons for keeping his parentage a secret. If his mother should be believed, then half of both the supernatural and much of the human world already knew this. Yes, in a way, you could say God is my grandfather. After all, since Michael, that's my dad for your information, calls the Almighty Father, so in that case it makes him grandfather to me, explained Naruto. Asia, with tears stained in her green eyes, grabbed onto his shirt as she chokingly said, "Have you not heard, Naruto-san? They say Holy Father is dead. Is it true? I refuse to believe it, but tell me if it's true." Naruto was sure even if that was the truth, he would not have been able to tell it to this innocent-looking girl. The tears made her eyes sparkle in a way that spoke of a naive innocence that was so rare to find among humans, much less devils these days. The heart of the girl was pure. She reminded him so much of Hinata back when she was young. Many people took her tepidness for weakness, and also the fact that she would always avoid fights unless necessary. Hinata was a pacifist, but when it came down to it she could fight with the best of them, but her greatest powers was her strength of character. And even though she was standing so close behind him, the little girl was like a throwback to the old days. In the end he also saw his baby girl in her. That innocent sweet ray of sunshine that took away all of his addiction to ramen and training had a dark side that could make her grandmother proud of the Uzumaki blood in her veins, and took the best parts of her mother to be a daughter he loved more than life itself. He hugged her as he whispered to her, loud enough so that everyone around here could hear him, and with a voice he had only used when he talking with Himawari, he told her. "Honestly, it's impossible for God to die. He's missing. Probably on a vacation somewhere in the Bahamas. God created everything, Asia. Everything. If he were dead there would be no earth, no tomorrow, no pain when you prayed, and no ramen. His existence is the very weave that holds our reality together. Without him, this dimension will fall and be assimilated by the dimension gap and Earth. The entire galaxy and universe would be no more. So wipe your tears. I don't know where God is, but I am pretty sure he is not dead, which I can prove it." "Does your sacred gear still work?" asked Naruto. "Yes. Then that's all confirmation you need. The sacred gears are all of God's creations, each of them runs with the power of his essence. If he were dead then all sacred gears would lose their powers and be nothing more than ordinary or dead humans, so cheer up, Asia, and everything is going to be okay." Asia nodded her head vigorously. Quite frankly, it was a comical sight for Naruto, but he didn't care. He had a sense of fulfillment, as he was able to calm her down. "It is good to have you back, Naruto," another familiar voice sounded out. Naruto could feel himself stiffen all the way from the sole of his feet to the crown of his head. For a moment he had no intention of answering, since he had no idea what to say, but he had gone through a surprising amount of growth this past few months, so dealing with this awkward situation should not be a problem for him. "Hello, Rias. It's good to be back." Bucko. What is he doing here?" say another familiar voice. Of course Issei did not get the chance to have his questions answered. A ball of fire came flying into their midst, catching them in surprise. Naruto moved fast, way faster than anybody expected, as he scooped up Asia and retreated. "Oh, looky here, if it's not the Princess of Ruin. You know who I am then. Good. Now all 5 of you submit yourself to my authority and answer for the crimes that you have caused or disappear. Who do you think you are? You think just because you are the sister of the Lucifer, that gives you the right to look down on us? Hey, don't worry, by the time I am done with you, you'll learn to respect me," growled one of the devils. "In fact, I will make you feel like a woman, my woman. It must be suffocating being such a prissy, stuck-up, self-centered bitch. When was the last time you had a man touch you? Don't worry, I will make you feel pleasures like you have never seen before." No one is going to make Rias feel like a woman except me. Her virginity and delicious boobies belongs to me, shouted Issei, as his gauntlet glowed green. Boost. And then Issei jumped into the fight with no plan or tact, just passion and idiocy. Naruto had to admit. Issei was a boy after his own heart. After all, he used to be like that. Scratch that, he was still like that. How dare those fools say such things about a woman? They need this old man a lesson to teach them a lesson. Before Rias could give any other order, Naruto shot forward with speeds that would put Kiba to shame. His fist connected on the face of the devil, who just spoke, and before his element of surprise could wear off, he turned and blasted another one of the devils with a condensed hall of light energy. The ensuing reaction was so stomach-churning Asia lost most of her dinner. The devil that has been hit with the light energy began to have his flesh burn and shrink as his body caved in on itself. His screams rent the night as his bones cracked, his flesh boiled, his body rapidly and painfully compressing into a ball of guts and blood. It only took about a minute for the whole ordeal to end, but Naruto was sure to that devil it would have felt like he experienced an eternity of torture. Naruto had no idea his light energy had such a reaction with devils. Since this was the first time he fought with a devil, his mom didn't count. After all, she was part human and he had never used his light weaving skills against her in any of their sparring sessions. Everyone there was all looking at him as if he had grown an extra appendage or something. Of course Naruto was as surprised as they were, so he really did not want them looking at him like an alien who just crashed on Earth. But he couldn't help but defend himself when he saw Akeno looking at him with a look that said you are in trouble, but of course he had no idea what he did wrong. "In my defense, I had no idea that was going to happen," say Naruto. "Why are fallen angels working with the Gremory family?" shouted another devil. "Well, devil number 1, I don't know your name, so let's me call you that. What makes you think I am a fallen? So you are an angel?" "Nope, not that either. If you want to get technical then yes, but I am not really an angel." "So what are you then? Some kind of freak show experiment by Ajuka or by Azazel?" Before Naruto could reply to that, the devil that said that, and had been designated as devil number 1, had been burnt to a crisp by the sudden surge of lightning that came out of nowhere. Naruto turned and looked at Akeno as she looked at anywhere but him, pretending like she did not just send a devil to the afterlife in one of the most excruciating way possible. "Well, Naruto, I am sure I am speaking for us all when I say your abilities are quite a surprise, but I will really appreciate if you finish what you started," said Rias. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. He was not so gullible as to not notice that Rias was trying to manipulate him into showing more of his abilities. He was too old for this sort of drama. He had to spend years dealing with this sort of thing with most if not all of the ninjas he knew back home, especially Sasuke and his crazy dead brother Itachi. Well, there was nothing to worry about. He could just choose to use what he had already shown. While the effects his light weaving had on devils left a bad taste in his mouth, he had no intentions of being anybody's pawn, not even Rias. The other devils, seeing that Naruto had shifted his attention back to them, all moved a step back in fright. They were all low to mid-class devils, but none of that meant anything in the face of holy energy and the light-weaving skills of angelic beings. Naruto set his sights on the remaining 3 devils. If Rias wanted a show, then he would give her a show the likes which she has never seen before. Naruto gave the devils the happiest grin he could muster as he said to them. "Think happy thoughts," Naruto said. "Huh? What?" one of the remaining devils questioned. Without giving them any chance to draw any meaning from what he just said, a platform of light formed under their feet, its glow and intensity so bright that even Rias and her peerage had to take a step back to not take any damage. The platform shot up swiftly with the smell of burnt flesh as it ascended, breaking the sound barrier. The sheer speed tore at their skin, littering them with tiny, almost imperceptible cuts from the buffeting strikes of the wind. And while that was happening, the platform of light under them was burning and peeling the flesh of their back. It was gruesome. With how good a devil's eyesight was, especially at night, they all had a front row seat to the gruesome display of power. The platform suddenly disappeared from under them, sending the devils falling down from a height of almost 30,000 feet. For a sweet, sweet moment the strays were free of any sort of pain. Of course a fall from that height will most certainly kill them, but the relief they got from the constant burn of holy energy was so fulfilling. It was like drinking ice-cold flavored water in the middle of the desert after 10 days dehydration. For that swift moment, they had a chance to hope, to believe that they may get out of this ordeal alive until the platform appeared again, and this time, it was right on top of their face. It drove down fast with a vengeance, exposing their red and raw backs to the winds once again as they fell right back down to earth. They could not scream as the platform on them burned away at their faces and body, exposing skin ligaments and finally bone to more torture, their hearts palpitating and beating with fear. It was quite obvious to them, they would not survive this ordeal, but they each would have given anything to be killed quicker. This was a tortuously slow way to die, it hurt a lot. Naruto created another platform and this time he modified it. A light circle with spikes on its surface came into existence. Then Naruto shot it up for a collision course with the other platform, putting the strays in between them. It may not have occurred to anybody, but the way Naruto chose to kill the strays was reminiscent of a chef making a hamburger. Both platforms met with a boom sound, sizzling smoke and the smell of burnt flesh wafted into the air. For the first 5 minutes the only sound accompanying it was the sound of poor Asia pouring out the rest of her lunch. Naruto gazed at the scene with a blank expression on his face. Every other person just stared at his back in surprise. Akeno knew Naruto was never one to wantonly torture before he killed anybody, so his actions today surprised her. Nonetheless, it was a show worthy of the Hall of Fame of dramatic killing, or was it overkill? Naruto tuned everything out as he looked at the rapidly evaporating pool of blood that was all that was left of the strays. His actions surprised even himself. He was never that ruthless in his past life. The strays never did anything to him, but he was so angry when they insulted Rias. He was even surer that if it were Akeno who was the one insulted, those guys would still be alive and be going through torture that would make every living thing on this planet cringe in fright for centuries. Naruto had never lost his emotions like this before, so much so that he would have wantonly and tortuously kill a group of stray devils in such a gruesome manner. The only time this ever happened was when. Good gods of earth, Kurama. Naruto swore. Well, it was about time, you brat. Ha ha ha. Of course Naruto did not go jumping for joy at the sound of his old friend. In fact, if anything, his mood rapidly plummeted down just like a bunch of stray devils he just took care of. Shit, why me, God? Why me? He murmured. Thanks for watching.